Then I'll tell you this story as well, also in the second hour at about 10 to 8 thereabouts. And it's a concerning one. The long-distance bus operator Intercape tells harrowing tales of its drivers coming under gunfire, especially on routes between the Eastern and the Western Cape. And this is amid what it describes as a growing threat of extortion-related violence that is targeting its services. The company joined the Golden Arrow bus service, delivering a stark presentation to members of Parliament yesterday in Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police. And they're calling attention to law enforcement's failure to act despite overwhelming evidence. And this includes video evidence that the bus service Intercape shared with MPs. The presentation left many MPs speechless, stunned by some of the more than 200 incidents that have occurred since 2022. But is being shocked and horrified enough for a member of parliament, for lawmakers who have the wherewithal to legislate, to demand accountability from people such as the executive around policing? So I'll be talking to Johan Ferreira, who is the Intercape CEO, and that conversation is coming up, as I said, at about 10 to 8 this morning. The last one that I want to highlight for you, as we all know by now, the National Prosecuting Authority says it will appeal the recent acquittal of controversial televangelist Timothy Omotosho by the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court in Gqeberha. Prosecutors are adamant that Judge Irma Skuman made certain errors of law, including what they say was a failure to take into consideration the evidence that they had presented in trying to prove their case. So this is as opposed to focusing on the performance of the prosecutors, but failure to take into account the evidence that had been presented. Well, too little, too late, says one gender rights organization. That's Sonke Gender Justice, and they are not convinced at all about the substance of the NPA's appeal, and they are concerned that the processes that the prosecution's body wants to undertake now could serve only to re-traumatize survivors, and in a way they represent systemic prosecutorial failures and a justice system that they say continues to violate rather than protect victims of sexual violence. So Sonke Gender Justice's co-executive director, Bafana Khumalo, is my guest at about 10 to 7 this morning. Morning Brief team members, to your stations for the takeoff, please. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief, and that's coming up shortly. Dowling Lechela has your business and market news covered throughout the morning. And of course, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7 this morning. Through it all, I'd like you to be a part of this conversation. Please give me a call on 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes and I'll play them and engage with them. And the number to send those to is 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, and that is SAFM Radio. So we've got lots of ground to cover. What are we waiting for? Let's get it started.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Reigning champions Bafana Bas Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
South Africans don't like to talk about Say what? Mara FYI, our financial confidence is, and our financial anxiety, it's an F show.
Or
is it? See, just talking about our finances can build confidence and make us better at managing them.
This is exciting. Welcome to your Fintervention, Mzansi.
It's our way to get you talking, laughing, and learning about.
Start now at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services, and registered credit provider.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
Up first then is Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. Let's start in Parliament. Sparks flew, didn't they, in the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Higher Education. Tell me what this was about, this incident involving the EFF MP, Sihlelonzi.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. So chaos erupted yesterday during the meeting when EFF MP Simelane was forcibly removed after questioning the appointment of Gwede Mangashe's son to the Mersita board. Lonzi insisted on answers from the Department of Higher Education's DG, despite committee chairperson Tebo Kholesi stating that the matter and the DG lacked appointment authority. The situation escalated, resulting in security escorting Lonzi out as he accused the chair of protecting corruption. The confrontation follows backlash over a leaked list of politically connected SETA board appointees, prompting opposition to call for transparency and accountability from the Minister Nobuhle Nkabane, who made these appointments.
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't seen scenes like those in quite a while in Parliament, scenes of confrontation of that nature. But yeah, it really was dramatic, and I have a feeling we'll be following up on that story in the days to come. Also staying in Parliament, tell me about the Independent Electoral Commission and what they've been saying about a move from the traditional ballot to e-voting.
So members of parliament have expressed concerns about the possible shift from traditional ballot papers to electronic voting, e-voting in South Africa. The IEC presented its preliminary considerations to the Portfolio Committee for COGTA, highlighting that e-voting as one of the broader technological reforms aimed at improving the electoral efficiency and accessibility. While the IEC emphasized that no decision has been made yet and that Parliament will ultimately decide, MPs raised issues regarding cybersecurity, costs, system reliability, voter privacy, and existing infrastructure challenges. This is it's currently under public consultation, and it will inform a green paper by March 2026.
And tell me about this incident. It really sounds like a horrific one out of Vleerhof in the west of Johannesburg, involving the death of this child.
This was quite a sad story. So residents of Vleerhof West in Johannesburg are living in fear now following the death of an 11-year-old boy whose body was found on a staircase at Swazi Place complex. He was reported missing after not returning home from school on Tuesday, while his scholar transport driver claimed to have dropped him off. His family disputes this. Police have opened an inquest and engaged with the family and residents. However, community members are suspecting that there is foul play and they've also conducted a door-to-door search and are calling for swift arrests to be made and for safety and order to be restored back into the complex.
Adechina Chidima, there's a name we haven't heard in a while. Tell me about her mother, Annabella Rungo. What happened with her?
So the mother of the former Miss SA finalist contestant has had her bail conditions eased by the Cape Town Magistrates Court. Rungo is facing charges of identity theft, previously under strict house arrest since February for remaining in South Africa after her ID was revoked. She is now allowed to leave her home with a 9 p.m. curfew and may attend other legal proceedings. Her next court appearance is scheduled to take place on the 12th of September of this year.
All right, Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with your morning brief in brief. If I can add just one thing to Melissa's list there, is the statement coming through late last night. We expected it, but it was confirmation from the presidency, confirming that President Cyril Ramaphosa will embark on a working visit to the United States from the 19th to the 22nd of this month. On Wednesday, 21 May 2025, President Ramaphosa will meet with President Donald Trump at the White House in Washington, Washington, D.C. to discuss bilateral, regional, and global issues of interest. So that statement confirming that the president's visit is going ahead to the United States. It will be interesting to watch.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
At 19 minutes after 6, let's give you a sense of how your weather will be looking on this Thursday. We start in Pretoria as always. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 21. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, 11 to 20. Mbombela will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 11 to 22. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 8 to 21. Mahikeng, fine, 8 to 21. Bloemfontein will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 22. Kimberley, fine, 8 to 24. Uppington, fine, 8 to 26. Cape Town, fine, 17 to 28. George will have morning fog, otherwise fine, 11 to 27. Gqeberha will have morning fog, otherwise fine, with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 27. East London will be fine with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 26. Durban, fine, 18 to 25. Richards Bay, fine, 17 to 27. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be fine with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 26.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favourite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's done it again! Action! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Being kind to each other is ubudo.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Chetu, do you want to play Market Day now?
Doing things together as a community can be even more fun than doing them on our own.
Amo loves it so much when we can just be ourselves and learn about our culture together.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6. Well, let's take you to a country we don't really cover much in South America, Peru. It is once again plunged into political turmoil as Prime Minister Gustavo Adrianzen resigned just hours before facing a crucial no-confidence vote in Congress. His departure signals deepening instability under President Dina Boluarte, whose government is under mounting pressure and amid rising crime and plummeting public support in that country. Let's speak to Dr. Sonia Teron, who is a lecturer in security studies at the University of Pretoria's Department of Political Sciences. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. My understanding is that this is the third prime minister to resign, and importantly, this came just before a no-confidence vote.
Yes, that is correct. And as you say, it is a continuing trend, which is indicative of both the social and political challenges, as well as the tug of war that is continuing in the country between the Congress and the executive.
And it came off the back of this killing of these 13 mine workers. What does it tell us about the stability of the country under the President Dina Boluarte and amid all the protests that we have seen recently?
Yes, it tells us that the instability is continuing. The unfortunate incident with the miners is sort of the camel that the straw that broke the camel's back. And the pressure, I think, will continue to mount. The question will be whether the country and the government will continue to spiral in the face of these challenges, or whether it will trigger some form of real systematic and structural reform.
And what does it say that we've had 3 prime ministers resign under the same president? Does it speak to, there was also even that attempt to reshuffle the cabinet before this resignation took place. So this instability seems to have been going on over a consistent period of time under this presidency.
Yes, that's very true. And in fact, if you take a longer view, this inconsistency goes even to prior to this presidency. The government has sort of been characterized as a revolving door, particularly in the executive. And as this revolving door continues, we see that the Congress is actually the real holder of power. And a lot of times the executive and the cabinet reshuffles are seen as a bit of a scapegoat, as a way to appear to be addressing these social issues, but in reality, it doesn't actually result in any significant change as this revolving door just continues to turn.
Yeah, not to mention that this current president came in after a previous president had been impeached. But
exactly.
Tell me about the issues that they face in that country. I understand that, not to stereotype or anything, but like other countries in that region, there are quite significant problems with the issues of crime, gang violence, and the likes.
Yes. What is actually interesting is that in relation to the rest of the region, Peru used to be one of the countries that faced less crime in relation, relatively. But this crime has been increasing for many years. We've seen a lot of gang violence. We've seen a lot of extortion, which is what happened with these miners. And this, along with continued problems around illegal mining, which we ourselves are familiar with here in South Africa, problems of resource extortion, problems of racial and ethnic inequality. This is all sort of reaching a boiling point. And this is what's happening now with the Prime Minister, some would say, is really just a Band-Aid on a much bigger wound.
And what are the prospects of returning that stability, but also at the same time being able to respond to those issues? As we know, South America and actions that sometimes lead to people leaving and seeking asylum and better opportunities in the United States, that's firmly under the spotlight under the Trump administration.
Of course, yes. At the moment, it seems to be headed in a trajectory of more of the same, which is a situation where the government, both Congress and executive, have shockingly low approval rates in the single digits. And the people, having realized that the government is not really either interested or willing or capable in addressing their concerns around crime, are going to the streets to express their discontent. Yeah. Whether this will continue to boil to a point of actually really changing the government and the way politics are conducted in the country is yet to be seen.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Dr. Sonia Teron. She's a lecturer in the Security Studies at the University of Pretoria's Department of Political Sciences.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Yeah, Zai, good morning. Zai, it stopped being a competition long ago. It's no longer competitive anymore.
But 8 is great. It's a good number to wake up to.
It's routine now.
Yeah, Sundowns, wow, dominance over Chippa United last night, 3-0. It was a victory for them at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, securing that 8th consecutive league title and an unmatched 15th PSL crown. Sundowns extended their unbeaten streak against Chippa United, boasting 17 wins and 7 draws in their 24 league meetings since the 2012-2013 season. Let's hear from their coach, Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso.
When you work with a group of players with this character, it's more easy. Obviously that we knew that everything was a new proposal, let's say, new ideas, changing a lot, but we believed also in ourselves a lot. When we believe in ourselves and we make them believe also on them. And it was important to make them, to conquer their hearts, conquer their minds, because then football appears. I hope South Africa in general and football people understand the work that has been done in Mamelodi Sundowns.
Elsewhere, Real Madrid snatched a 2-1 win over Real Mallorca last night to delay Barcelona's title celebrations. Los Blancos cut the gap on the Catalan Giants to 4 points ahead of Barcelona's visit to neighbours Espanyol tonight, where they can wrap up the title with a victory. Meanwhile, Bologna ended a 51-year wait for a major trophy. They won the Italian Cup with a 1-0 victory over AC Milan, who slumped to yet another painful defeat. And tennis action, Carlos Alcaraz came through a tough battle against Jack Draper to reach the last four at the Italian Open. 6-4, 6-4. Alcaraz's victory ensured he will rise above Alexander Zverev to number 2 in the ATP rankings. This will also lock the 22-year-old Alcaraz as in the second seed for the upcoming French Open, where he is the defending champion. And finally, cycling, the overall leader Mats Pedersen made it 3 wins out of 5 at this year's Giro d'Italia as he won a bunch sprint at the beginning of the 5th stage yesterday. We'll have more of these and other sports stories. Top of the hour, I'm Zaikan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa will travel to the United States early next week for a meeting with his counterpart Donald Trump at the White House. The presidency has confirmed Ramaphosa's trip after Trump announced earlier this week that he was expecting a leadership delegation from South Africa. 3 more suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Sibusiso Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli are expected to make their first appearance in the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga today. And taxi organization Santaco has distanced itself from individuals claiming to be taxi industry officials who are stopping drivers of private vehicles to extort money from them. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A little bit happening around Pretoria this morning. You might want to avoid the R21 north between Monument Park and Fountain Circle. There's already a backlog of traffic. You're going to be asked to sit in that this morning. We'll keep an eye on that, let you know as soon as it's lifted. The N1 North's got some roadworks going through to Rigel, so an unusual slowdown there. Nightmare yesterday getting through Midrand, building again this morning with another crash down by Buccleuch interchange. Traffic is already jam-packed through Allendale and working back towards the New Road exit very, very quickly. Durban, a fallen tree to watch for on the M7 between the North Dean and the Malvern exit, left lane closed as you head down towards the Bluff area. And Cape Town, it is day 4 of protest-related closures of Malabongwe Drive at Dunoon Rivergate through to effectively the N7. That road is closed, and it is building up through Tableview. Noticeable backlogs this morning on Gee Road down towards Bloberg to Kuberg North, up towards Potsdam Road, the West Coast Road, Marine Drive, passing Bayside down to Dolphin Beach. It is going to be a very busy morning through there again. And also crash on the N7, Jakes Curvell Drive opposite Langa, just going up towards Beaufort Circle as you go between Epping and Langa. Very slow coming through from the N2 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Dowling, good morning to you. Let's start with news out of the financial sector as we try and get Dowling on the line. And Dowling will be telling us about news coming through from Santam. And Dowling, good morning. So let's start with Santam. You're saying that they've posted double-digit growth in premiums in Q1. What's that about?
Morning.
Is that the kind of premiums that I'm thinking of?
Yes, it is the kind of premiums
that we don't want to hear about.
That we don't want to hear about, because that means we're paying a bit more. So their first quarter performance has exceeded expectations, with the insurer reporting double-digit growth in gross written premiums and a strong underwriting margin. Now, the company's conventional insurance business delivered an 11% increase in gross written premiums, driven by contributions from all business segments. One of its businesses, MyWay, achieved double-digit growth, while Santam Re also experienced strong growth supported by strategic partnerships. Now, despite the positive performance, Santam remains cautiously optimistic acknowledging potential headwinds, including global political tensions and a weaker rand exchange rate, which could lead to higher claims inflation and negatively impact underwriting results. Now, to deal with these risks, the group is focusing on expense management and moving forward with strategic growth initiatives.
And tell me about Grindrod. Am I correct in understanding that they are in logistics, right?
Yes.
Tell me about them moving forward with the plan to dump non-core assets. Which assets are these?
So they're really trying to focus or really grow their focus within the logistics and transport industry. And by doing this, they are divesting from their non-core assets. They recently just divested from their 50% stake in marine fuel trading business Cocket, marking the final step in its efforts to shed these non-core assets. Now, this move follows the company's decision to streamline its operations and divest non-essential businesses. Grindrod has already sold off several non-core assets, including Grindrod Bank and North Coast Property-backed loans to African Bank earlier this year. The decision to exit Cocket was made jointly with Energy Group Vital, the joint owner of the business. Cocket will not take on new business moving forward, but it will continue to fulfill its existing contractual obligations to ensure a stable wind-down process. As part of the deal, Grindrod will receive $22 million, equivalent to 61% of Cocket's carrying value as of December. Now, this move just highlights Grindrod's commitment to refocusing on its core logistics and transport operations.
All right, please give us our first market roundup for the morning, please, Ntauling.
Now, while the tariff rally cools, markets have turned their focus to Trump's visit to the Middle East that kicked off earlier this week, particularly deals with Saudi Arabia. A deal really boosting markets is a partnership struck between Saudi Arabia and NVIDIA, that boosting U.S. chip makers and tech stocks. With that, we saw the NASDAQ leading the gains in yesterday's trading session, up close to 0.75%. Here at home, sentiment mostly downbeat, a pullback in the gold price really weighing on stocks. With that, the all-share shed almost 0.2% yesterday, fueled by losses in the Resources 10 complex, down over 2%. The rand, in the meantime, proving to be resilient despite the mixed mood we've been seeing in financial markets. It's trading at 18.25 to the dollar this morning. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks in the red today as we continue to experience some profit-taking after the rally that hit markets at the top of the week.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lechela with the first report of the morning. She'll be back with more insights for you just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, we start in Libya. Tell me about this fighting that you're saying is going on in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. What's going on there?
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Thulas, the United Nations support mission in Libya, it is concerned with the latest escalation of violence in the capital city. Despite that, both factions, both from the north and the south, they have been pushing for the government of national unity. But what is the trigger now, Thulas? It is the latest assassination of one of the heads of the government-affiliated unit known by Kaniwa. Now, this has caused the tension that the armed faction aligned with the Prime Minister, Debia, have been also having a challenge with some of the leaders within the defense. Hence, we have this tension in Libya that is going on. Hence, since from yesterday, there have been some gunfire, explosion heard in some of the several cities. We know that Libya, since post-Muammar Gaddafi, it has never been stable. Even today, they are still struggling to go to the elections, even if they have what they call a government of national unity.
Yeah, that's quite concerning, those developments out of Libya. Tell me about what's happening in Gabon and the Bongo family.
So you'll remember that, since the coming of General Bryce Ngwema, there have been some moves to also release both the son and the wife of President Ali Bongo, who's still under house arrest. So they've been moved from the prison to the house arrest also, almost since the military coup that happened in 2023. Now, this is the latest move that is coming from the government of Gabon, saying that they want to at least close that chapter, Thulas, because we have these family members who are not only charged for being close to their father, but there are issues of embezzlement of funds. There are issues of corruption that they've been alleged against the wife of Ali Bongo as well as the son.
Mm. And then in Southern Africa, tell me about Botswana and what plans they have for asylum seekers.
Thulas, you know, when you talk about Botswana now under Duma Bokwe, they will always want to uphold human rights. Here we are talking about 469 asylum seekers who were detained in Francistown Center. Now they are being moved to the northeast part of the capital city, Gaborone. We know that famous refugee camp, Dukwi. Now these asylum seekers are from DRC, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. And that's how the government said they cannot detain people without trial. To us, they are moving them to the Dukwe refugee camp. That refugee camp is under the supervision of the United Nations Human Rights Refugee Agency. So this is how Botswana is moving to us. They don't just, arrest people, detain them. They are taking them to a better space.
Yeah, no, he is quite resolute in some of his, in fact, in all of his programs is Duma Boko, the new president. In your historical archives, Sipho, take me to 15 May 1889. It's a beautiful piece of history that you're going to share with us this morning.
Thulas, it's almost 136 years ago. He was born in Georgedale in Natal, not in Soweto, but he was called the father of Soweto. We are talking about James Sofasanke Mpanza. When you talk of Mpanza, Thulas, there are many streets around Soweto. Our highways are named after him. He was part of the Orlando Advisory Board. He fought for the people when they were moved to have more houses. Hence, he formed a party, Sofasonke Party. If people they know Orlando Pirates, the name where it comes from, this is the man also, Sofasonke Mpanza. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading the conversation at SAFM.
Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update for this morning.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
The Health Professions Council of South Africa, HPCSA, is calling for nominations to be considered to serve as members of the HPCSA professional boards. All practitioners actively registered with the HPCSA may be nominated. Please note that you may not nominate yourself or the application will not be considered. Deadline for submissions is the 2nd of June 2025. For more information, please visit the HPCSA website, hpcsa.co.za.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
All right, so we are meant to bring you the perspective of the columnist, the Citizen columnist Martin Williams, on the issue of the 49 Afrikaners who left the country on Sunday, headed for the United States under the designation of the Trump administration, just battling a little bit to get in contact and finally connect with Martin Williams. But we wanted to bring another perspective, because what we've been trying to do is to give you as many perspectives as possible. Yesterday, you will remember we spoke to Kim Heller, who was pointing out what she believes is the underlying phenomenon behind the trek, an abiding sense of white privilege, victimhood, and a refusal to embrace and appreciate the reconciliation project that the country has undertaken since 1994. So we believed that, on the opposite end of the spectrum are the views that have been expressed by Martin Williams, and that's why we wanted to bring them to you so that you get a full picture and then you make up your own mind. But we are battling battling to get hold of Martin Williams. We'll see if we can connect with him a bit later on and see if we can have that conversation later.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me take this one voice note. It has to do with the issue that has really come up quite sharply in the last few weeks, the conditions under which certain sectors in our economy can employ foreign nationals. What is the qualifying criteria, and is there a limit to the number of foreign nationals that can occupy certain positions? I saw it coming up recently in the context of state departments that deal with security. Let me hear what this person has to say.
Morning, SAFM. Regarding the chief that has been hired, which the media accomplished that is a Zimbabwean nation, I think for me, it's not fair as a South African. We have a lot of comrades that they can take that position. So the government must review the hire of the guy.
Yeah, that's part of that conversation that I was alluding to. A clear sense that I'm getting is that people would like for more clarity about under what conditions does this pre-qualification that says if you have rare skills, there's a rare skills list, I believe. Has that been updated? And is that the criteria? And in which sectors does it apply? Because, you're seeing this constantly coming up, and it's part of the broader conversation that South Africans are having about the issues of migration in the country. Let me take another voice note now.
Morning, sir. Our general elections has always been one of great integrity, where we have people, observers, ensuring observers from all parties ensuring that it's a free and fair elections. And there's great controversy around the world where e-voting has been taking place, where the systems are manipulated, where votes are being recounted. So I think they must just leave the voting as it is now, especially when we see a party that in the first general elections had close to I think they had 2/3 majority in the voting, but now we see that they are slipping, and now they want to bring in this e-voting to manipulate the voting system. So e-voting is a no-no. Vince, Cape Town.
Yeah, thank you for that. So there's someone there who doesn't really have much confidence in the systems of electronic voting. And it's a conversation we had recently, and I think with Sai Mamabolo recently, where we were talking about when you say e-voting, what do you mean? Do you mean the systems are electronic at the polling station, or do you mean that people should be able to vote by just logging in and going into a particular secure portal and be able to cast their ballot, having gone through certain checks and balances? And I think from the conversation, if I remember it correctly, and Mr. Mamabulo will forgive me if I'm not remembering it correctly, they were leaning more towards a system based at the polling station, where the systems are just electronic at that point, which would help them with the logistics, as well as being able to count and be able to tally the votes quite quickly. But you're absolutely right. Concerns about security continue to linger. And I think even in that conversation I had with him, I did raise those concerns, that in other countries there are those concerns. Let me take this one. It has to do with the conversation we will have in the second hour of the show with the CEO of Intercape and the concerns about violence that is being meted out since 2022 or thereabouts against their drivers, gun violence related to extortion.
Good morning, Dr. Thulas. It's Fred the Truck. And Dr. Thulas,
You know, it looks like the owner of Intercape is all alone in this fight. I don't know where the truck owners are. You remember in 2014, us as truck drivers, we used to be robbed there by these guys in Flosham shoes and these Palabaram shoes. They used to come. You help them to take off your spare wheel. You help them to take off the battery. They take it. Even now, they've recruited this young man who jumps on trucks. They remove the stock there. They jump out. They go and sell it to the community again. It's just lawlessness.
Yeah, Fred, thank you for that. I don't know. I mean, I think you've heard my views about the impotence of the state and the failure to use the instruments of government, the instruments of law enforcement in the country, just a sense of asserting the authority of the state. And I don't know if I can add to what I've said in the past. I feel defeated, honestly, because these are some of the crimes that I think you would want to target and go immediately for, because experience, we were talking about Peru, and I don't know if this happens in Peru, but in other countries in South America where these extortion gangs get so powerful that schools shut down and kids are not able to go to school for a week or so. You don't want to get to that point. You are a democratic state clothed with all the authority that comes from having been elected in a popular vote with a constitution that is sovereign. You have everything. What more do we need to say? What else is there to say, guys?
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Busy in Pretoria this morning. The M1 North has a double lane closure going up to Rigel Avenue. That's going to surprise anyone that's on that route. A big queue already, a fat queue all the way back to Boerta Avenue. Up through the R21 on your way to Rigel. M1 North looking very heavy. The R21, you want to avoid that this morning between Monument Park and Fountain Circle. You're going to be asked to sit in some heavy traffic. And day two of crazy delays coming through Midrand this morning. It's a crash. In fact, there's two collisions. One after Allendale, another in Buccleuch. Pretty much where yesterday's crash was, of course, major delays. The M1 into Joburg through Midrand is backing heavily beyond the new road exit at this stage. N3 is busy. Elon's interchange all the way through to Linksfield Road with a breakdown in front of Edenvale. Durban pretty busy as well. Obviously, the rumble strips delaying traffic both ways along the N3 near Pavilion. The M7 is already tight from Hunstetman all the way up over St John's Avenue Bridge. That's a real problem getting into Pinetown these days. The M13 Hillcrest down to the top of Fields Hill, very slow as well. If you're coming into Kloof area, looks like something sort of at the top of Fields Hill, which is causing that delay. Cape Town, day 4 of the ongoing disruption due to the community unrest at Dunoon. Malabongwe stays closed. Rivergate through to Potsdam Road. Very heavy traffic again in that Tableview area. You'll even feel it on Plattekloof Road coming a sort of across from the Crendel Circle over the N7 into Coburg Road. It's like just, either looking for alternative routes or just motorists being forced to take routes that are a little bit further afield. So what you've been through the last few days of this week, going through again this morning. And just staying in Cape Town, the N7 North is heavy. A crash up by Beaufort Circle in Epping. It's a heavy queue right back through the N2 towards Vangate Mall territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favourite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, let me start by giving credit to the initial reporting of independent news on this story. Too little, too late. That's the sharp rebuke from Sonke Gender Justice following the National Prosecuting Authority's announcement that it will appeal the acquittal of televangelist Timothy Omotosho and his co-accused. After an 8-year trial, the trio were acquitted of charges including rape, sexual assault, human trafficking, and racketeering. Now, as the NPA cites legal errors in the judgment and prepares for an appeal, some activists warn of deepened trauma for survivors, systemic prosecutorial failure, and a justice system that they say continues to violate rather than protect victims of sexual violence. Let's speak to Bafana Khumalo, who is co-executive director of Sonke Gender Justice. Reverend, good morning and thank you for your time. What about the intended appeal by the NPA doesn't sit well with you? The prosecution's body says it's pursuing it after thorough consideration by a senior internal team as well as the advice of senior counsel. Is it that you don't believe it bears reasonable prospects of success?
Well, we doubt that there's a prospect of success. The point of the matter to us is that the manner in which the NPA approached this case from the beginning has been faltering from one disaster to another. As you are aware, they had to change prosecutors, and there were issues around how the case was managed, and it took 8 years, and these young women who indeed were the brave ones in this instance, who came forward, took on someone who has really exposed them to this abuse and faced the nation to tell their stories. Even after the 8 years, are nowhere closer to seeing this matter being resolved. Now, we ask the question, why did the NPA enroll this case if they had not taken good care to ensure that the good professionals who know what they should be doing, given that we have high levels of gender-based violence in this country, we have high challenges of rape against women, to ensure that indeed the case is run professionally and done appropriately. The remarks by the judge are really telling, and it's public knowledge, of course, what the judgment says about the performance of the prosecution. Now, this is not very good for the NPA to come back and say, well, we're going to appeal. We are not sure what that means in essence, because you can't recreate a case that you have run in court.
Well, the NPA says, the NPA says, from what I understand from my conversations a few days ago with Mthunzi Maka, who speaks on behalf of the NPA, their assertion is that the prosecutorial conduct, professionalism, and the questions of ethics and competence that were raised by the judge are one thing, and those are being dealt with in a internal review and investigation. But the issue around the points of law, they are arguing that the judge failed to then take into account what evidence was there that could have been taken into account, and that failure amounts to, an error of law. Are you suggesting that they should not even go down that path, that should have been left unchecked, even if they believe that there were these errors of law?
Well, I think that is a very precarious one. I mean, Thulas, we all watched that court case. Quite frankly, as I sit here, I'm not a legal person, but I don't think that the prosecution mounted a case beyond reasonable doubt. I don't think, we heard the evidence in chief of the victims, which was compelling. But I mean, you don't win a case simply in terms of our law, as you know. You know, you need to prove your case as the state beyond reasonable doubt, and show that you thoroughly cross-examine the defense in evidence, so that indeed you put your facts on the case to the presiding officer. It's not for the presiding officer to decide where the case should be going.
Yeah.
It's for you as the state that you need to mount a strong case that ensures that, you know, it's beyond all reasonable doubt. Now, I doubt that. I'm really wondering what will be put before the magistrate or the judge in terms of the reasons for the appeal.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to wait and see. But just on observation, we don't think that this thing will go further than what is being said by the NPA.
And of course, the NPA will point to some recent instances where they took this route and were successful. The Pistorius matter is one example, and there's another example that they've been citing out of the Western Cape recently, as well as one that sort of relates to the current issue coming out of the Makanda, the High Court in Makanda, the Gogo matter, where it was a rape matter, and they took a point of law to the SCA and were successful. Lastly, Reverend, tell me about your concerns about re-traumatizing the survivors in this case.
Thulas, these young women, as I've said, came forward 8 years ago, and we all watched as this case was unfolding. What does it mean for them now to say, well, we're going to go back because they've not had closure? We saw when they came out and, raised their concerns in public. This is re-traumatizing to them, no doubt, because to say you're going to go back to court, you also acknowledge publicly that your officials misdirected themselves, did not carry themselves professionally. That is re-traumatizing to the victims, because why is it that this happened even in the first place, when we know the sensitivities that are related to a case of this matter? It shouldn't have happened in the first place.
All right, Reverend. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Reverend Bafana Khumalo. He's co-executive director at Sonke Gender Justice. Let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa to embark on a working visit to the US, and Masimula takes action against embattled Eastern Cape municipality. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa will travel to the United States early next week for a meeting with his counterpart Donald Trump at the White House. The presidency confirmed Ramaphosa's trip after Trump announced earlier this week that he was expecting a leadership delegation from South Africa. The meeting, expected on Wednesday next week, comes amid strained bilateral relations between South Africa and the US. This after Trump signed an executive order in February accusing South Africa of discriminating against the Afrikaner minority. Shawan Bryce-Peace reports from New York.
President Ramaphosa will arrive just over a week after the first group of so-called Afrikaner refugees were admitted into the United States amid claims by President Trump that a genocide against the group was underway in South Africa. His executive order also blocked all foreign aid to the country amid claims of race-based discrimination and allegations of land expropriation without compensation. The visit is also likely to focus heavily on trade and tariffs and the future of South Africa's preferential status in the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The presidency says the two leaders will discuss bilateral, regional and global issues of interest during a visit that provides a platform to reset the strategic relationship between the two countries.
3 more suspects arrested in connection with the disappearance of journalist Sibusiso Aseri Ndlovu and his partner Zotwa Mdluli are expected to make their first appearance in the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga today. They were expected to appear in court yesterday, but the matter was postponed to allow police to deal with some logistical issues. Police say they made the latest arrests in KwaMhlanga on Tuesday morning. Calvin Ludla reports.
The appearance of the 3 was postponed to Thursday as police are preparing for an identification that will take place on Wednesday with the suspects. According to the police, the 3 latest suspects will be taken to the crime scene where they will be expected to each mention their role in committing the crime. This forms part of the evidence that will be presented in court when they appear in front of Magistrate Henry Dupree on Thursday. The 3 were arrested in the early hours of Tuesday.
Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Deputy Minister Dr. Namane Masimula has set up a task team to deal with challenges the embattled Makana municipality is facing. Masimula conducted an oversight visit to the municipality in the Eastern Cape. Challenges at the municipality include aging infrastructure and water supply disruptions. Masimula says the challenges stem from poor administration.
The following institutions and departments are going to put together an interdepartmental engineering task team that must be on site to do what? It must come and take over responsibilities in the actual management of the infrastructure programs and the systems of the city. In the next coming 6 months, that team will have to take full charge of the management and the running of this municipality.
Taxi organisation Santaco has distanced itself from individuals claiming to be taxi industry officials who are stopping drivers of private vehicles to extort money from them. The taxi organisation has also urged the public to disregard social media posts claiming taxi operators are planning to impound private vehicles. Santaco spokesperson Machiki Dipala says they have not authorised such action.
We reaffirm that Santaco is committed to the safe, reliable and lawful transport of South Africans in roadworthy vehicles. We continue to embrace innovation and modern technology to improve our services and ensure the safety of our commuters and the general public. We urge the public to refrain from spreading unverified information that damages the integrity of the industry and sows fear among communities.
And the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department has called on the public to claim their vehicles that are currently impounded. It says vehicles can be collected from the pound between today and the 16th of next month from Monday to Friday between 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. EMPD spokesperson Tabiso Mahatu.
Failing to claim vehicles, they may be sold in a form of a public auction and proceeds derived from this auction be dealt with as prescribed by Regulation 320(4) of the National Traffic Act NRTA 93 of 1996.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa will travel to the United States early next week for a meeting with his counterpart Donald Trump at the White House. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Here's some breaking news you might have missed. Gordon, a 44-year-old man, switched to Outsurance and now saves an unbelievable 2,794 Rand a month on his 2019 Ford Everest 2-litre automatic. Imagine having 2,794 Rand more money every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines Soccer, and it's Mamelodi Sundowns who are dominating. They've officially clinched their 8th consecutive Betway Premiership title. And tennis action, it's Arina Sabalenka who's dumped out of the Italian Open by the Olympic winner Zhang Jiwen. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty big queues on the M1 North going up into Pretoria this morning. It's roadworks, a double-lane closure between the R21 and Rigel. That traffic is back now beyond Buata Avenue and looking heavy. A reminder, stay off the R21 Monument Park to Fountain Circle. That will seriously hold you up on your way into Pretoria today. Durban, very busy. Hillcrest through Kloof and down Fields Hill on your way to Pinetown is backlogging. N3 is pretty heavy as well with those rumble strips in place near Pavilion Mall. Cape Town, the N7 North at Beaufort Circle. Earlier crash has been cleared. But the N7 is heavy, a queue back beyond Vangate Mall. Also, collision R300 leaving Mitchell's Plain towards the M7, so that is quite slow. And heavy pressure again, day 4 of disruption around Tableview with that ongoing closure of Malabongwe Drive. 2 of the big queues for the West Coast Road Marine Drive from Sunningdale all the way down to Sunset Beach and Plattekloof Road, coming across from sort of Hill-Basson territory through to Crandall Circle over the N7 down to Coburg Road. Very heavy backlogs there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 6 on this Thursday. Hey, good morning to you. Wherever you are this morning, wherever you're hearing us from, we hope you're having a beautiful morning on this Thursday. Let me tell you what's coming up over this hour. In fact, over the next half hour or so. Let me start with my immediate next conversation, and that will be with the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Much focus on the financial institution, Ithala. We all know it as Ithala Bank, but there's a technicality there in that it has never really held a substantive banking license. It has always operated with exemptions from having to comply with the Banks Act. And when that was not renewed, it ran into some serious problems, leading up to the processes that we're seeing now, where there's an application for its liquidation. Last week, there was a court judgment that basically allowed Ithala to resume its operations, albeit under this cloud of this pending liquidation hearing that's still to go ahead. Now you were hearing from the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, among other people, who's calling for Ithala to be defended. And among the proposals that he is making, Tamintuli, is that the departments, government departments in the province, as well as municipalities, must show their support to Ithala by actually banking with it and also transacting with Ithala. So I'll be in conversation with Premier Ntuli over the next few minutes. And then shortly after that, I'll talk to Mthunzi Maga, who speaks on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority. And we'll be talking about the outcome from the Free State Division of the High Court in Bloemfontein, which basically has handed them a significant victory in that case involving the former Premier and former ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule, where a preservation order of properties to the tune of some 32 million rand was granted to the NPA yesterday in that ongoing case that has to do with that asbestos roof replacement program of several years ago. So those are just some of the stories, some of the ground that we will traverse within this hour. But through it all, you are a big part of this conversation, and I'd want to hear from you. Please give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Join us this Tuesday evening at 7:30 for the latest series of SAFTA award-winning reality show, The Tastemaster SA.
Today's theme is all about bread.
I love making bread.
I am shaking my boots. What a bitch. We got this, we got this. Oh, that didn't sound convincing. I'm feeling a little stressed.
I'm not going to mess this one up.
That's The Tastemaster SA. Tuesdays at 7:30, repeats Sundays at 4. Only on SABC2.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, 13 minutes after 7. The KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tamintuli wants his provincial departments and municipalities in the province to deposit their funds and transact with the embattled Ithala Bank. This in the wake of last week's High Court judgment, which allowed the bank facing possible liquidation to resume operations, which had come to a halt since the Reserve Bank's Prudential Authority announced earlier this year that it was applying for Ithala's liquidation. Ntuli yesterday delivered an impassioned and urgent call to defend Ithala. Let's speak to the Premier then, Premier Tamintuli. Good morning to you and thank you for your time, Premier. When you say defend and support Ithala, what exactly do you mean? What are the measures that you are calling for to support and defend Ithala under the current circumstances?
Well, good morning, Thulasizwe, and to the listeners at home, and thank you for having me. In fact, one is calling upon various role players, one, ourselves as government, and Ithala, SOC, where in court is a route that we are using to prove that Ithala is supposed to continue operational, while at the same time the call is an invitation to government. As you know, that Ithala has been operating through exemption, of which that is what we appealed for from the Minister of Finance, that as an option in the interim, it's important that an exemption is given to Ithala. Well, for the court, the PA and RA, they have appealed the judgment of Judge Ngobe as we speak, which again is putting back Ithala to a non-operational position. But we are confident that the judgment was categorical and clear, because it was saying in terms of the law, they were not supposed to interfere with the daily operations of Ithala. Hence, it was in fact affording Ithala an opportunity to continue.
When you say that one of the pathways to save it would be for, you say the finance minister, but my understanding is that those processes now reside with the Prudential Authority and no longer with, that the previous process that involved the finance minister. So the Prudential Authority giving them another exemption, what benefit would that serve, given that for about a decade or so, they operated under this exemptions system, and they were told in 2022 that this is your last exemption, make sure you get a proper banking license, which they didn't do?
Well, the issue of a proper banking license is what is in process, because they did apply. They submitted an application. Well, there are areas which also ourselves we are assisting to say, then for these areas, let us ensure that together we work to resolve them. However, for the exemption, when we talk about the Prudential Authority, we are talking about the Reserve Bank and Treasurer. So we're of the view that the Finance Minister by law is in fact capacitated to ensure that the exemption is afforded Ithala. Ithala is not just an ordinary bank according to our view. It's a people's bank. It was meant to assist the people, to finance people from rural and the township communities that are actually prevented by other commercial banks to access support for starting businesses and the likes. So the situation is dire as we speak, because you see, when you look at the cases like a mother whose child had to leave tertiary school because the money was with Itala, the savings was with Itala, and was paying for the tertiary school through Itala. So the situation is quite very dire, and we're of the view that we need to defend Itala, and we all must ensure that when it in fact open, we continue to bank with Itala, and more people, businesses bank with Itala.
You take me to my next point, Premier. Your call for the provincial departments and municipalities to deposit their funds with Itala as well as transact with Itala. Just tell me how you envisage that working, given the fact that Itala is not a registered commercial bank, and both the PFMA in Section 7 of the PFMA as well as Section 7 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, it can't be clearer than that. In both of them, they prohibit that provincial government departments, in the case of the PFMA, and municipalities deposit their funds with a bank that is not registered as a bank in terms of the Banking Act. So how do you envisage that happening? Oh, I'm told the Premier's line dropped there. What a pity, because, that's the question that I wanted to pose to the Premier. Let's see if we can get him back as soon as possible and see if we can conclude on that point, because as I was proposing to the Premier, both pieces of legislation talking about a prohibition on municipalities and the entities at provincial and national level from depositing their funds with a bank that is not registered properly. But we seem to have lost the line to the Premier. We'll see if we can pick up the conversation at a future date.
No matter our abilities, we can all play together.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Wow! I love this game! Learning new things is the best part about having a friend who knows something you don't know.
Oh, yay!
We are all special in our own way.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Save and win a car with Spar for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get Cadbury Crunchy Lunch Bar or 5-star chocolate bars, any two for 22 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 175 gram Protex soap, any two for 24 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's coming up to 22 minutes after 7. Let's go to this story. The Free State Division of the High Court in Bloemfontein has handed a significant victory to the National Prosecuting Authority by approving a 32 million rand preservation order against former Free State Premier Ace Magashule and others implicated in a far-reaching asbestos corruption and money laundering scandal. The NPA says this ruling marks another major step in its broader crackdown on state capture and financial crimes that have plagued the country's public institutions. So let's speak to Mthunzi Maga, the spokesperson of the National Prosecuting Authority. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time, Mthunzi, this morning. Let's start with this preservation order. What does it cover, and what does it enable you to do as the NPA while we watch the trial unfold in the High Court in Bloemfontein?
Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to your listeners. It's good to be back with you again. Thulas, what is important here is that this is a broader, aggressive strategy on anti-corruption on state capture-related cases by the Asset Forfeiture Unit in the NPA, where we are adopting a broader approach because, remember, there's a criminal prosecution underway. Now, what we're doing is to ensure that whoever benefited unlawfully from the state capture, whatever financial incentive derived, we take it away from you. We hit you, it hurts most, which is the pocket. So what the preservation order does, in respect of Mr. Mbambane and his wife, Mr. Mbambane unfortunately is late, but his wife is still surviving, and Mr. Khaden and his siblings and the entities that they own. We have managed to preserve assets in the form of 6 immovable properties and 1 Mercedes-Benz that was bought cash for 2 million. What it means is that we did not have to wait for a conviction in respect of the total 32 million worth of assets. But we proved to the court that these were proceeds of crime, and as such, court, please grant us the opportunity to forfeit them to the state. Now they have about 14 days within which to challenge that preservation order that was granted on 13 March. But we need to obtain the order within 90 days if they don't oppose it. If they oppose it, it might go beyond the 90 days. But you'll recall that there's also 255 million worth of assets that has been restrained in respect of Mr. Sodi and other accused. That one is in respect of Chapter 5 of POCA, where we are awaiting, or it's dependent on a conviction.
So that, in fact, before we turn to that Chapter 5 of POCA, but I want to clarify the current assets. There is the preservation order that you obtained now has nothing to do with assets of Ace Magashule, but the other.
Not at all, sir, not at all. There has been inaccurate reporting on other media houses that have corrected that these assets do not belong to Mr. Ace Magashule. They belong to the 3 accused persons that I have mentioned and their entities.
So you then just said now that this is part of a broader approach, and you mentioned the previous preservation order. And I think restraint order. You're saying that relates to Chapter 5 of the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. How does that work? Does it have to do with those having been instruments in the commission of crimes?
Indeed, what we're saying in Chapter 5 is that you committed these offenses and you derived this financial incentive, but we're saying in order for us to take those assets, we need to prove that they are linked to the commission of the offense, and as such, there has to be a conviction. You must be found guilty, then we will take those assets. But now they are restrained in that they are held somewhere by a curator until such time that the court says you are guilty, then we'll take them away finally to the state. But in respect of Chapter 6, which relates to the 32 million, we don't have to wait for the conviction. Once we prove in court on a balance of probabilities that these were proceeds of crime, you lose. They go straight to the state, and then we sell the property in an auction. The money goes criminal assets recovery account.
How confident are you that you'll be able to, make sure that the preservation order you've obtained now in relation to this 30 million rand worth of assets is confirmed within the 90 days, even if it is opposed? Because you've heard a criticism and a critique that says you are very loud when you are undertaking these preservation orders and other similar action, but quiet when, you don't succeed and prevail in court and you have to return them.
Thulas, in as much as you are a communicator, that which reflects badly on you, when it's not talked about, it's good. But when it's positive, you flaunt it, So I'm not sure why you would expect us to say, no, this person has been found not guilty and all of that. Yeah. But it's a PR strategy that suits one, that doesn't suit another. But we want to say that on a balance of probabilities, for now we've proven that these are proceeds of crime. We will wait to hear how they respond to the order, whether they mount a strong challenge, which we believe will meticulously oppose.
Yeah. And then lastly, Mthunzi, there's been a response to in a separate matter, to you saying as the NPA that you will be appealing on certain points of law the judgment that acquitted Timothy Omotosho and his co-accused. Sonke Gender Justice, for example, this morning saying that they're not convinced about the merits of what you are appealing about there, and worried that this whole process may only serve to re-traumatize victims in this matter.
Thulas, the tricky part of it is that I've been listening to some legal commentators, because I think in South Africa, Thulas, you'll agree with me, we have very few legal analysts or experts. We have commentators. We have not outlined sufficiently the grounds, because that period has not arrived. All that we did, in line with the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment of DPP Western Cape versus Kuman and another, is to clarify factual findings so that we can finalize the questions of law that will be a basis for our appeal. We have not put it out there, the grounds upon which we are appealing. All I did was to briefly say the Honorable Judge, with respect, misdirected herself on the law in not sufficiently evaluating the evidence of each witness that we presented.
All right, gotcha. Let's leave it there for this morning. That's Mthunzi Maga, the spokesperson of the National Prosecuting Authority.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's kick off with Mamelodi Sundowns officially clinching their 8th consecutive Betway Premiership title after a dominant 3-0 win over Chippa United last night. Ikram Reyners set the tone with his 14th goal of the season, while Arthur Sales came off the bench to grab a brace. Ronwen Williams kept things tight at the back as Chippa barely threatened. With the title now wrapped up, Masandawana turned their focus to the CAF Champions League and the upcoming FIFA Club World Cup. Tennis action. Carlos Alcaraz came from a tough battle, and that was against Jack Draper to reach the last four at the Italian Open for the first time, 6-4, 6-4. Casper Ruud secured his spot in the quarterfinals after a straight sets win over Jean Minard, 6-3, 6-4. He faces a tough battle ahead as he faces the top seed Italian, Yannick Sinner, next.
He's also had a great clay court season, let's not forget. I mean, last year he did semis of Monte Carlo. I think it was quarters Madrid. He pulled out over here, and then semis of Roland Garros. So he can definitely play on this surface. It's not like it's just he's a completely different player. And we had a practice set the other day before the tournament started. It was pretty even set. So I think it could be a fun match. Of course, I got a little taste of the Italian crowd the other night with Matteo, and I'm sure tomorrow it will be even crazier.
And in the women's draw, the Italian champion, Olympic champion Zhang Jiwen stunned the world number one Arina Sabalenka in the quarterfinals of the Italian Open, 6-4, 6-3. And finally, athletics, South African teenage sensation Bayanda Walaza has shared details of his nerve-wracking false start scare at the World Senior Relay Championships in China. Now, during the final, Walaza came dangerously close to being disqualifying the team after being flagged for a false start. Fortunately, a green flag saved him. Now, the world under-20 100-meter and 200-meter champion displaying remarkable composure during the restart. And, of course, there was no indication that he had been spared by that green flag.
Say it's a matter of seeing my warnings. You know, I'm one person who actually, when I do wrong, I believe that I do wrong and I actually forgive myself for it, and I actually don't want to do it again. So after getting the green card, in my mind it was like, I'm not going to do that again. Even if I have to come out late at the blocks, I wouldn't mind at this moment. So I'm a one person who, if I've done something wrong, I'll try to fix myself and make sure that next time I won't do it.
That's a wrap. We'll race back to more sport. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Debt Busters Debt Index for the first quarter of this year shows more South Africans are relying on personal loans to survive as the cost of living escalates. 91% of debt counselling applicants have loans. President Cyril Ramaphosa will travel to the United States early next week for a meeting with his counterpart Donald Trump at the White House. The presidency confirmed Ramaphosa's trip after Trump announced earlier this week that he was expecting a leadership delegation from South Africa. And Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Deputy Minister Dr. Namane Masimula has set up a task team to deal with challenges the embattled Makana municipality is facing. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heavy traffic backlogs both ways on the N1 linking Pretoria and Joburg this morning. First up, if you're into Pretoria, heading up that way, major congestion between Brockfontein and Rigel Avenue. It's a double-lane closure on the M1 at the R21, and that's a really big backlog heading to Pretoria. If you're coming towards Joburg, an earlier crash on the Mike 1 southbound at Buccleuch this morning, and that's backing traffic from as far back as the old Johannesburg Road exit. You went through that yesterday, going through an absolute repeat of that this morning. Crashed pretty much same place. Net result, big queues towards Joburg through Midrand. Also pretty heavy on the M1 today between Bayers Nordia and Winnie Mandela Drive as well. Crossing to Durban, the M13 from Hillcrest coming onto Fields Hill via Kloof. That stays busy. A lot busier than you might be expecting. The M7 into Pinetown up over St John's Avenue stays really slow. Rumble Strip still with us at Pavilion Mall, so that's heavy both ways. And the M7 heading down towards the Bluff area, just queues through Malvern. Down towards the N2 highway. It's looking a little bit unusual there. Cape Town, day 4 of the closure up at Malabongwe Drive to Noon. Very heavy traffic all over Tableview. That's not only traffic trying to get out by avoiding sort of Malabongwe, but others that would normally come off the N7 and go that way are now coming off at Plattekloof. Plattekloof Road, for an example, backed well beyond the Crendell Circle. It's a long queue all the way down towards the Kuberg Road side, and a crash coming out of Mitchell's Plain, R300 onto the M7. The M7 congested due to roadworks then up at Samora Michelle. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling. Ndauling. Cyril's economy has got you. You're not buying Burberry. That's why they are battling with, a 90% fall in profit.
That's right. Everyone, has tightened their purse strings, including me, Thulas.
Yeah.
And it shows in Burberry's results, a really tough year for the company. The firm reporting a 17% decline in revenue and a 94% plunge in adjusted operating profit to £26 million. Now, this comes as it experienced a tough first half, but the tide slowly started turning in the second half with a £67 million profit offsetting a 41 million loss experienced in the first half. Now, the group has pointed to difficult trading conditions, particularly in the US and China. Despite this, company CEO Joshua Schulman remains optimistic about the brand's future, citing improved brand sentiment and resilience in outwear categories. Now, Burberry is also implementing a cost savings program to deliver £24 million in savings in FY25 and an additional £60 million by FY27. Burberry is also in the middle of a restructuring process, which could affect 1,700 global roles. Now, despite the downbeat earnings and job cuts, markets are betting on that turnaround plan as the share price closed 15% higher in yesterday's session. Thulas, it's also interesting to note that this is the third company I've spoken about this week alone that's announced layoffs as part of their cost-cutting initiative. So seems like, tough times ahead.
Yeah, early signs of trouble, really, given the global context that you and I have spoken extensively about. No such problems, though, for Tencent, and thanks to gaming and AI.
That's right, Thulas, and that's really giving the company a boost. It's delivered a 13% rise in revenue in the first quarter, and net profit increased 14%, although it fell short of expectations. Now, the company's gaming revenue was driven by popular titles like Honor of Kings. Meanwhile, Tencent's WeChat platform, with over 1.4 billion monthly active users, continues to grow, with marketing services revenue up 20%. The company is also investing heavily in AI, with capital expenditure surging 91% over the quarter. Some of those AI efforts already generating revenue, with applications in ad targeting and user engagement in games also seeing the benefit of those AI initiatives. The company is optimistic about the potential for AI to drive growth, with the company's president, Martin Lau, noting that investments in chips and AI are already paying off. Now, the positive results from Tencent had a ripple effect on local counters Naspers and Prosus, with their stocks closing 1.9% and 2.5% higher, respectively, in yesterday's session. This boost, of course, largely due to the significant exposure both businesses have to Tencent.
Yeah. Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
Kicking things off in Asia, stocks really taking a breather today following the optimism that hit markets after the US-China trade truce. Some profit taking happening as investors await new market-moving catalysts. With that, stocks are in the red. The Japanese Nikkei, the hardest hit, down 0.85%. In Wall Street, futures also in negative territory after mixed trade in yesterday's session. Traders on that front digesting comments from Fed official Mary Daly, who said the U.S. economy remains strong and allows policymakers to be patient as they wait for more evidence of how the U.S. President Trump's policies will affect businesses and households. Then coming back home, stocks mostly in negative territory. The all share shedding 0.18%. The one bright spot, though, was the industrial 25, which was up 0.8% on the back of Tencent's earnings, which boosted Prosus and Naspers. Then in currency markets, the rand remains steady, slightly weaker at 18.28 to the dollar from 18.25 about an hour ago.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lechela. She'll be back with one more update for you just before the opening of trade for this morning on the JSE, and that update coming up just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
It was fast, easy, and he gave me the best quote. My savings is 644 rand. Come join our insurance and save some money.
Nice one, Lebo. Saving 644 Rand a month on your 2019 Mazda CX-3 would also make you so happy you might drop a beat. Outsurance clients know what it feels like to be on the winning side. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Switch and save today. Outsurance is always looking for ways to save you money. They are also committed to settling valid claims fairly and quickly. No hassles.
You know your claim is going to be taken care of and you've got support along the journey.
SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
This year, our entire continent will gather. People from different places united by a common goal. To discover, to connect and to grow. The world will get to see our vision. The vast potential that lies within an unlimited Africa, with the objective of creating market access to our vast array of leisure tourism products. Join us from 12 to 15 May at the Durban ICC for this unforgettable experience. South Africa awaits. Come find your joy. Africa's Travel Indaba is proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
Welcome to the SABC TV License Loyalty Program, where your payment isn't just about paying fees. It's about joining a vibrant community of connected viewers. Ready for the journey? Here's your roadmap. Sign up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and unlock an instant reward. You'll get an SMS to confirm your registration. Make a 50% or 100% payment to your account for a payment confirmation SMS and a promotional code. Explore our partners' product catalogs for an array of offerings. Receive an SMS voucher for your favorite outlet as the icing on the cake. Don't wait. Dive into a world of benefits. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments. They make a difference.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's shoot straight to your calls this morning. And if you don't mind, let me ask, I know that, it may be a bit unnatural to just shoot straight and go into the point that you are making. But in the interest of getting in as many of your comments as possible, can I ask that we just skip the pleasantries and the greetings? I really appreciate it. It's very African. It's who we are. But just for the purposes of what we are doing, let's shoot straight to the conversation. Prophet OJ, let's start with you. Set the example. Good morning. You want to talk about the NPA this morning?
Yes, my friend. I'm concerned, Peter. If you remember the case of that guy who was said to have killed his friend, his girlfriend in South Africa, he was brought to South Africa, but he went scot-free. We are having here, our country, the Bushiri case. There are questions around this case, and we are having now today the Omotoso thing. So our confidence is dropping. We are here that now the official unit about the Makasla case. Well, here, then it's gone. Yeah. So our confidence in the NPA and the justice system of our country is dropping. Yeah. We need to pull up their socks and regain their confidence in us.
No, Prophet OJ, thank you for that. And I think the NPA will appreciate the point that you are making, that whatever successes they are enjoying across the country in prosecutions on a daily basis, these big cases, big in inverted commas, matter in instilling confidence, right? Because these are matters of national importance that enjoy our attention, all of us. And when we see them not succeeding in those, whatever successes they are having at regional, district court level, in the high courts across the country, in other cases, doesn't really communicate and amplify their efficiency. And in fact, in the words of Prophet OJ, raise many questions about the NPA and its capabilities. So they are very much aware of that. Tlantla, good morning. Straight to the point. You want to talk about the EFF and what they were saying in Parliament. Sihlelonzi there raising those issues.
Yeah, my brother, what EFF is raising is the issue of violation of affirmative action. We can't have an ANC saying they stand for affirmative action while they're busy promoting nepotism.
Yeah.
What Mantashe is doing is denying the graduates who are qualified to get the same opportunities that he wants to give his own children. What we on the ground who are busy complaining about the companies that they are doing, private companies are doing, and then the same private companies, they say, we're doing what your black politicians are doing. As someone who has been a shop steward, these are some of the things we've been hearing from companies.
But do we know, Ntlantla, if Mr. Mantashe's son, appointed to the board of MERSITA, has the qualifications or not? And also just that differentiation, that this is a process that I imagine plays itself out in the higher education space as opposed to the ministry where Mr. Mantashe is minister, but you still don't trust the process.
My brother, whether his son has got the qualification, the fact is it's his son. This is not like of course, in fact, where a king will run, and then when he dies, his son will take over. Nonsensical, faith.
All right.
How?
Tlantla, thank you for that, my brother. We'll talk again.
Sure.
Tlantla in KZN there. Let me go to Prof Mthembu. Good morning and straight to the point, Prof. You want to respond, Pro Mthembu, my apologies for that. You want to respond to the conversation we had with Reverend Bafana Khumalo a bit earlier on.
Yes, indeed. I feel it's disingenuous for the Reverend, to suggest that NPA should not appeal the ruling because they will not succeed. This is about, the victims and not about the NPA.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel it's very paternalistic, and it goes back to toxic patriarchy for him to suggest that, the victims will be traumatized, re-traumatized, because the victims have not said that. And I feel where is really coming from, it is a colleague of mine, his cause analysis there, is that he is a man of the cloth, and the accused person is a man of the cloth. And there are many religious male leaders, that get accused of rape, and it is a rape. It's not gender-based violence. It is rape or women against, So they did not follow on the case because, I still say it was a black female. Because, if they were this concerned, Sonke Gender Justice would have gone in as a friend of the court in that particular matter. And they were going to make sure that the evidence is what it should be. And their team of attorneys would have got the opportunity to present, the case, justice in this particular case.
I'm not sure it works that way, though, in criminal matters, though, Pro, hey? I think in criminal matters, it's between the state and the accused.
Yes, it is between the state and the accused, but you can go in as a friend of the court.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. And I didn't see their advocacy, while these proceedings, are ongoing. And even now, he did not say anything. He did not demonize Omotoso. So Omotoso has been silenced. It is now about the victim. The perpetrator here is Omotoso.
All right, gotcha. Pro, thank you for your call. That's Pro in KZN. Let me move on to Kaya in Richards Bay. Good morning to you. Straight to the point. What about President Ramaphosa and him going to the United States?
Our president is a good man, a cool-headed man, polite, a full gentleman. But this time around, I think he's being pushed around. He's being bullied. Our president promised the nation that we won't be bullied by Trump, who's arrogant, who's racist, who's foolish, in fact. White South Africans are all over the media dismissing the genocide because there's no genocide. Everybody knows that, including Trump. So why our president is wasting our limited resources to go and negotiate with Trump? I feel the president is allowing himself to be pushed too far.
You don't think it's about doing everything humanly possible to try and salvage what is, objectively a very important diplomatic relationship, diplomatic and trade relationship?
We have embassy in U.S., which is on its own undermined. We have foreign affairs minister, a man of integrity on his own right. All those state apparatus can assist in this matter. But for our president to be treated like this by an arrogant racist Trump, I feel we are being sold out as a nation. We are allowing ourselves to be bullied.
Gotcha. Kaya,
thank
you for that. And Kaya's sentiment there, even before anything happens in the Oval Office, even before anything happens, even before the visit itself plays itself out, who knows how it will transpire when President Ramaphosa lands in Washington next week. Let me take two quick voice notes. They have to do with the issue of the financial institution, Ithala SOC.
Good morning, Thulas. Is the Premier not protecting Ithala because it's an IFP legacy, since he's a member of the IFP also? And is it not going to be similar to VBS, where money was not supposed to be banked by government institutions? Thank you. Anonymous from Soweto.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, beyond the Premier being a member of the IFP, I have heard other voices as well beyond the IFP that say Ithala should be saved if there is a way to save it. But the point that you are making about something similar to VBS, you're not the first person. I saw in one of the comments here, because the law is very clear about not putting monies in a bank that is not a registered bank in terms of the Banks Act. It's a pity we lost the Premier at that particular point, a crucial point, because I would have wanted to hear him on whether he's saying now or after Ithala obtains a banking license. Because if they were to do it now, really there would be lots of problems that would arise.
Good morning, Thulas. Great question. It looks like Ithala is going to head towards the same or a similar situation as VBS. I think the Premier did not read the law before he made his pronouncements. that's why his lines suddenly had a problem. Thank you very much, Anonymous from Bombela.
Yeah, I hear you, Anonymous, but I don't know. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I really don't believe that the line dropped because of that question, because I think, as a senior politician, he anticipated this question. And in fact, I think it started being asked yesterday, immediately after he said, let's all move our banks, our accounts and transact with Itala. That question was only a natural question. So I choose to give him the benefit of the doubt that the line actually dropped.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Northern parts of Tshwane, there's a collision there this morning. It's on the R101 just south of Hammanskraal. So if you're going in around Hammanskraal, quite a big backlog to work through. Pretoria quite busy this morning. Roadworks a little bit earlier on the M1 North up by the R21. That's a result of a queue right back into Brockfontein interchange territory. That M1 North is very heavy. R21 Monument Park to Fountain Circle going into Pretoria should be avoided. And the N14 heading up towards Eupheus Road on your way to Pretoria, pretty sluggish as well. Crash on the M1 South between Allendale and Buccleuch. Repetition of yesterday's queues as you line up from Old Joburg Road in Centurion all the way down through that Midrand area. N1 between Beyers Nordia and Willie Mandela is quite heavy this morning, and a crash off the highway at Beyers Nordia and Chris Jandevet. That's quite slow out in that sort of Honeydew area this morning, working your way around that one. Durban, collision on the Higginson Highway leaving Chatsworth near the N2. So from Bayview, that's slow. A crash up by Commercial Highway, the N2. In fact, there's a crash and then a breakdown up towards Gateway. So N2 North from Queen Dundee Drive, really heavy queues on your way out towards the airport side this morning. Cape Town, Table View still battling along with the day 4 closure up at Malabongwe Drive, Dunoon. A lot of traffic congestion in Table View, sort of rerouting away from Sandown Road, but there's a lot of traffic that wants to get into sort of Killarney Gardens area, so that comes across on Plattekloof Road, which is really heavy this morning, on to Coburg, which is heavy up to Bloberg Road, and that sort of Plattekloof Road, Coburg Road option remains busy all day as long as that closure stays in at Malabongwe Drive. Otherwise, the West Coast Road, Marine Drive, heavy Sunningdale through Sunset Beach, Milnerton through to Pardon Islands, pretty badly backed up as well along that section of the coastal run. And the N2, worth a mention, through Somerset West, quite heavy this morning around the Gants Park area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
It's coming up to 5 minutes to 8. Long-distance bus operator Intercape has once again highlighted the growing threat of extortion-related violence targeting its services, especially along routes between the Eastern and Western Cape. The company, joined by Golden Arrow Bus Services, delivered a stark presentation to Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police, calling attention to law enforcement's failure to act despite overwhelming evidence. Let's speak to Intercape's CEO, Johan Ferreira. Good morning, and thank you for your time. So I listened to that hearing, bits and pieces of it, not the entire thing, but I just heard that sense of shock that your presentation induced among the members of that committee. Tell me what the problem is and how long it's been going on for.
Yeah, indeed. I think, good morning. The committee members were indeed shocked and horrified when they saw the video footage of the actual attacks. And I think that brings the message home very clearly. And this is a situation that's been ongoing since, actually started in 2016, but in 2019 it's escalated to violence, stoning and shooting incidences. And so now, in the end of the day, these are terrorist acts because it is something that happens within the borders of South Africa by South Africans on South Africans. So it's a very, very sad and serious situation. But I think, moreover, what is very concerning and needs urgent attention is the lack of government support. The government's not speaking out. Government is, in fact, fighting against protecting the citizens of South Africa, specifically the travelling public, in public vehicles.
What do you mean that they're actively fighting against protecting the travelling public in instances like these?
When we've got 200 cases, over 200 cases, from murder, attempting murder, racketeering, collusion, bribery, and so on. We've got 9 court cases. We had to go to court to ask the police to act. They opposed every application, lost every court case, lost every appeal, and was directed by the judges, different judges, to go and read up the Constitution, go and read up the responsibility of the police force, go and read up the responsibility of the different ministers, police commissioner, and directed them, instructed them to do their job and explaining to them how they should do it. They should report back to court, back to Intercape in terms of their progress. They should investigate, arrest. They should protect. Now, this is not what I'm saying. This is what the court said. And at this point in time, they're in contempt of court because they do not adhere to the court orders. And this is serious.
Was this an order against the police minister?
Just repeat that again.
I was asking. The line glitched a little bit there when you were starting with that explanation. I'm asking if that's an order that was issued recently against the police minister.
Well, not recently, last year, and also in the beginning of the year when they lost the appeal. Well, they didn't even bother to. They indicated they're going to appeal the case. They never bothered to file. So obviously they lost the chance and the process. Yeah.
In the meantime, then, how desperate is the situation? I imagine that they resort to video evidence to really drive the point home. One imagines that in situations like these, you wouldn't have had to even show and tell for people to believe that what you're saying is actually happening, and it has the kind of impacts that it has on the people, on your drivers and your passengers as well.
Now, look, we opened new routes in Phalaborwa and Limpopo, and immediately we had resistance from the taxis, blocking the buses from loading, offloading. We've even had a warrant officer telling Intercape not to continue with its service because the police can't do anything about the taxi violence. It's just ridiculous. But I think, moreover, this is a human rights issue. South Africans don't feel safe anymore. People are getting murdered, raped, attacked on a daily basis, across South Africa. And we've seen a big hoo-ha that was made about South Africans leaving the country for America and cowards and this and that. But that's not the point. The point is the man in the street feels unsafe. And many of these people are from the Eastern Cape. And it's the ANC constituents, and they don't, South Africans is just a statistic. If a politician, a family member gets murdered, 2 days you have the perpetrator. If a tourist gets murdered, 2 days you have the perpetrator. When a South African gets murdered, it's just a statistic. It's just one of another 20,000 people that get murdered every year in South Africa, and that is just not on anymore. People don't. I'm not going to take this, and the public of South Africa shouldn't take it anymore. We deserve better.
Johan, thank you. I think that's a good point to leave it there. That's Johan Ferreira, who is Intercape CEO. You heard the strong words coming through from Johan Ferreira with regard to the response or lack thereof on the part of the state to this phenomenon that has really hit Intercape and other bus operators over the last while. And Musa on standby with the latest news for you.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, many South Africans relying on personal loans to survive, and President Ramaphosa to embark on a working visit to the US. Good morning. Debtbusters Debt Index for the first quarter of this year shows more South Africans are relying on personal loans to survive, as the cost of living escalates. According to the index, a third of South Africans are struggling to repay their debt. 91% of debt counselling applicants have loans. Debtbusters Chief Operations Officer Benay Saga says the number is worrying.
The real challenge is that because incomes haven't grown, consumers are feeling the need to supplement them with additional sources of income. And the first port of call, it seems to be going for loans, particularly personal loans. As you say, it should never come to this stage, particularly for younger people. We really want to catch them early on and give them the right advice. But it really is for us at the highest level since 2017. And we haven't seen numbers like this in almost 10 years.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will travel to the United States early next week for a meeting with his counterpart Donald Trump at the White House. The presidency confirmed Ramaphosa's trip after Trump announced earlier this week that he was expecting a leadership delegation from South Africa. The meeting, expected on Wednesday next week, comes amidst strained bilateral relations between South Africa and the U.S. Showan Bryce Peace reports from New York.
President Ramaphosa will arrive just over a week after the first group of so-called Afrikaner refugees were admitted into the United States amid claims by President Trump that a genocide against the group was underway in South Africa. His executive order also blocked all foreign aid to the country amid claims of race-based discrimination and allegations of land expropriation without compensation. The visit is also likely to focus heavily on trade and tariffs and the future of South Africa's preferential status in the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The presidency says the two leaders will discuss bilateral, regional and global issues of interest during a visit that provides a platform to reset the strategic relationship between the two countries.
The Basic Education Department says it's determined to use a multifaceted approach to clean the system of sexual predators. This after the Education Labour Relations Council found at least 39 teachers countrywide guilty of sexual misconduct perpetrated against learners. The council says most of the teachers are from KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Gauteng. The department spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga says they need more than just vetting.
People get vetted. Once they are in the system, then they get involved in criminal activity. So vetting is not a guarantee whatsoever. We need to focus on changing the mindset, remind the adult that they have a duty to protect the young person that is in front of them, that they are supposed to educate, that they are supposed to nurture.
The Office of the Chief Justice has called for the implementation of an online system in the High Court in Umtata and the Eastern Cape. Chief Justice Mandisa Maya conducted an oversight visit to the High Court following allegations of corruption and bribery. The online system is currently being rolled out in courts. It will be implemented in the High Court in Umtata next month. The aim is to minimize the manipulation and protect the integrity of court systems. And finally, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Deputy Minister Dr. Namane Masimula has set up a task team to deal with challenges the embattled Makana municipality is facing. Masimula conducted an oversight visit to the municipality in the Eastern Cape. Challenges at the municipality include aging infrastructure and water supply disruptions. He says the challenges stem from poor administration.
The following institutions and departments are going to put together an interdepartmental engineering task team that must be on site to do what? It must come and take over responsibilities in the actual management of the infrastructure programs and the systems of this city. In the next coming 6 months, that team will have to take full charge of the management and the running of this municipality.
Recapping the top story, Debtbusters Debt Index for the first quarter of this year shows more South Africans are relying on personal loans to survive as the cost of living escalates. According to the index, a third of South Africans are struggling to repay their debt. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Breaking news just in. Bingi, a 60-year-old woman, slashed 870 rand a month off her car insurance premium. That's right. Pinky switched to Outsurance and now saves a mind-blowing 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, South Africa's Amajita will face Nigeria's Flying Eagles in a mouth-watering AFCON Under-20 semi-final today at 5 p.m. And South African rugby is mourning the passing of Cornell Fredericks at the age of 37 years old. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, Joburg, M1 North is heavy. Bayers Nordia right up to the Willie Mandela off-ramp southbound from Rivonia to Willie Mandela. You've got lights out south of the highway on Willie Mandela and Sloane, and it always, because Willie Mandela is so congested over the bridge, as you try to get off the highway, you've got absolutely nowhere to go but to backlog along the off-ramps and back up along the highway. So, Fourway's famous traffic light failure striking again this morning. It always strikes on a daily basis, though. R21 in Victoria remains heavy. Give that a miss between Monument Park and Fountain Circle this morning, and it crashed just south of Hammanskraal on the R101 top end of 20, causing some delays as well. Durban, a breakdown at Gateway. Before you get there, there's a crash just after Kumashi, pretty close together, those two incidents. If you're running north, it's heavy from Inanda Road all the way through until you get to that Umhlanga exit. The Rumble Strip still causing major delays on Durban's N3 both ways as well. Cape Town, Table View, very heavily backed again this morning. Day 4 of the protest at Dunoon, closing Malabongwe Drive, forcing traffic on Plattercliff Road to be heavily backed up from sort of roundabout Gielbeston, Bosmansdam side as you come across through De Crandall over the N7, and both all choked up out towards the roadworks on the Samora Michelle side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Just after 9 minutes after 8 on this Thursday, it's great to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the Morning Brief. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. So the conversation is sparkling once again this morning. We've been talking quite extensively about issues to do with Ithala Bank and the calls by the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Tamintuli, for the bank to be saved and rescued, and coupled with that, a call for the provincial government departments and municipalities to bank with and transact with Ithala Bank, which, as you know, still faces those pending proceedings around its possible liquidation. So you may want to weigh in on that. I'm open to engaging with you. But there's also the issues around the Omotosho appeal by the NPA, the Sonke Gender Justice, not convinced about the merits and the prospects of success for the NPA on appeal. And of course, in the last hour, we heard the response from Tunzimaga, who speaks on behalf of the NPA. All of those are topics on the table. There's also the issue of President Cyril Ramaphosa due to meet with the U.S. President Donald Trump next week in the White House, right? So yeah, I've just been wondering about that. How will it play out, knowing our president's personality and Donald Trump's personality, and who will be in the room, right? And to what extent does Donald Trump continue to adhere to the tradition and practice that these conversations happen behind closed doors and then you come out to address the media afterwards, right? I mean, we've seen a number of leaders going there. Most notable of them, of course, was that meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky earlier on in the year, which ended up being really a bust-up. But by contrast, there was that meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who stood his ground when he was meeting Donald Trump there in the White House. How will it play out with our own president, given the issues at play and the personalities at play? Just wondering out loud about that. I'll engage you. Please do call me on 086 000 2032. Also send me WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Lots of you on standby, so let's get it started.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Join us this Tuesday evening at 7:30 for the latest series of SAFTA award-winning reality show, The Tastemaster SA.
Today's theme is all about bread. I love making bread. I am shaking my boots. What a page. We got this, we got this. Oh, that didn't sound convincing. I'm feeling a little stressed. I'm not going to mess this one up.
That's The Tastemaster SA. Tuesdays at 7:30, repeats Sundays at 4. Only on SABC2.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Bond and Eunice, I see your calls, and Moses as well. But let me start with one or two voice notes. Let me take them.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Why don't they transfer General Mukwanazi just for 2 months to deal with these extortionists in Eastern Cape? I think he's the right man for the job.
Sure. Can you imagine the number of situations where we'll be calling for someone like Mkwanazi, Lieutenant General Mkwanazi? Is he Lieutenant General? Okay, let me not do that because these ranks always confuse me. So Nhlanhla Mkwanazi, the commissioner, to be deployed to so many situations. But it's that sense and longing for someone to be decisive in the response against crime.
Morning, Thulas. Mandela lied to the South Africans when he said the country is in your hands. It was a lie. The country is in the hands of the foreigners and the few ANC members, period, coming from Brixton.
Sure, I hear you. But I suppose what the late former president meant by that is that all those issues that you're talking about, it was up to you to stand against them and ensure that they don't creep to the point where some of them have become crises, right, in the country that you and I talk about on a daily basis. I think that's what "it's in your hands now" meant, that he had done his part. It's up to us to guard this democracy, safeguard it, and ensure that it is executed and prosecuted in the manner that serves all of us.
The issue of Ithala is also kind of confusing. I think there's something happening politically and there's actually something else in the bank. My father banked with Ithala. And when these shenanigans were starting, he went to Ithala and Ithala told him, please go to FNB and ask FNB, you've been sent by us, you need to open an account. And Ithala actually moved the money to FNB. So things are happening. Professionals, technocrats, they know what's going on, and politicians are saying something else. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Bongi, thank you for that. Yeah, that's an important distinction. The technical details of the processes unfolding as governed by various laws, the Banks Act, the Insolvency Act, as well as the prescripts of the Municipal Finance Management Act and the Public Finance Management Act. All of those intersect to really guide what's going to happen in this situation. So it will be interesting to see, because part of what the Reserve Bank has said is that the reason they froze the accounts, the deposit-taking accounts of Ithala, is really to safeguard ordinary depositors in this situation, to ensure that there's no run on the bank and there's a certain amount that's been set aside as to ensure that depositors don't lose their monies. It would be a different story if municipalities, as happened in VPS, municipalities and other government entities had their monies in Itala as well, they would, in terms of their ranking, would be in a spot of bother compared to ordinary depositors, as we understand it. Let me take calls now. Let me go to Bond in Gqeberha. Good morning to you, Bond. You want to weigh in on President Ramaphosa? Straight to the point, my friend.
Yes, good morning. What I will say for President Ramaphosa after the pleasantries with President Trump is, why, Mr. President, do not call your U.S. embassy in South Africa so that they can confirm the mischief making made there on your side? Because the Vienna Convention, one of the roles of it is that the embassy reports on what is happening in the host country to the sending state. Alternatively, the gross dereliction of duty is that of the embassy. It should have phoned the White House and said, Mr. President, wait a minute, it's not like that. We're here, there's no genocide here. So I'm going to pose a question to your producers to say, can you invite one of the officials of the U.S. Embassy to say why did they not correct that which was misinformation? Can you do that? Thank you.
That's a nice challenge for us there, Bond in Gqeberha. But I wonder to what extent do things work that way currently in the United States? It seems to me that no one, very few people within the Republican Party ever really question what Donald Trump says. Very few. It's only now that it's starting, you're seeing one or two instances of pushback. But it seemed to me that if Donald Trump woke up and said the earth is flat, only Democrats would say, no, the earth is round. I don't know. That's the impression I get from this side of the world. Vusi in Waterfall, good morning to you. Is it Waterfall or Waterfall? Please go ahead.
Good morning, Vusi in Waterfall.
Waterfall, yes. Please go ahead.
Yes. I would like our president, as much as I know he is a diplomatic person, I would really like him to stand his ground when he gets there, because we all know Donald Trump is not that kind of a person. He's always going to push, and I'd like our president to actually push back a bit. Don't be like what we saw with Zelensky. And I also hope that when they take that meeting, whether it's in closed doors or what, J.D. Vance shouldn't be there, because I feel like Donald Trump alone, our president can take him. But with Zelensky, with J.D. Vance on his side, it's going to be a bit
but he brings him to these meetings for reinforcement.
I get that, but I really need our president to, because look, our president is going to go there very softly and diplomatic and be like, this and that, Afrikaners and all that, and AGOA, all trying to solve all that, but he needs to stand his ground a bit, because after all the AGOA and US aid and all that is gone, then we can actually speak to America as trade partners and not beggars, as it always been.
That's Vusi in Waterfall there. Let me go to Muzi in eThekwini. From Vusi to Muzi. Good morning. Please go ahead. Also on the same issue.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, I worry because Mr. Magonya is not going to be there to speak on behalf of the president. And from what I noticed, Donald Trump does not dodge to engage with especially journalists or people that are harsh on him. But normally what I notice, our president, when it comes to debate, even in parliament, normally duck for conversations like that. And Donald Trump is very harsh on that. So I get very, very worried, because to me, it looks like it's going to be exposed.
It's a style issue, isn't it, Muzi? In that our president tends to be more diplomatic instead of being just direct and blunt, which is Trump's style.
Yes, and you normally get committees or people who speak on his behalf, and he don't want to expose himself in the situations like that. So I get very, very worried when he's going to be there by himself.
Well, let's see what's going to happen when he lands in Washington. Muzi in eThekwini there. Let me lastly take Eunice here in Joburg. Good morning to Eunice. You want to talk about something completely different, India and Pakistan. Please go ahead.
Yes, Thulasizwe. I'm not talking about this 4-day war 2 weeks ago. Now, remember when this war happened and there was a quick ceasefire brokered by the Americans. Now, India basically has relied on American, French, and Israeli weaponry in this war. Israeli drones, French aircraft. Pakistan relied on Chinese jets and Chinese missiles. Now, this was the first time that Chinese weaponry has been used in open warfare, and it was very effective for the Pakistan army, where they brought down the elite Rafale jets of India.
Yeah.
Now, that is why suddenly there's a surge in Chinese shares in Chinese weaponry factories. Because they've seen what has happened there. But no one is talking of the elephant in the room, why these two countries have been fighting. And the issue of Kashmir has to be brought to the fore.
Yeah.
After 1948, the partition, which the British were responsible for, by the way, for example, the United Nations Resolution 47 has clearly said that there need to be a plebiscite in Kashmir, meaning a referendum.
Yeah.
The destiny of the Kashmiri people lies with the Kashmiri people. For example, the resolution says that the Kashmiris have a right either to join Pakistan or India or remain on their own. Now, it's India that is reneging on this resolution. If you take the question of where Indian control Kashmir, it's the most militarized zone in the world. 700,000 troops are there.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Amnesty International report, Thulasizwe, you will see rape is used as a weapon of war. Thousands have been killed and detained in the last decade or so.
You've raised the point. Thank you for that. That's Eunice in Joburg. An important and critical point that Eunice raises there. One of the long-standing situations that, as Eunice says, deserves ongoing attention on our part.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
We plan for vacations, retirement, and even tonight's dinner. But do we plan for our health? It's how we protect our family's future. So who are you staying healthy for? And how can you protect their future? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding life with health checks and extra rewards. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Despite the country's constitutional guarantees and international obligations, a new report presented to the UN exposes what it describes as systemic gender discrimination in the country's land and housing policies. Women, especially those in informal settlements, rural areas, or from migrant backgrounds, face entrenched legal and social barriers that deny them equal access to housing, security, and dignity. So let's speak to Nerishka Singh, who's Women's Equality Spaces Project Coordinator at the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, that's SERI, here in Johannesburg. Good morning, and thank you for your time this morning, Nerishka. Tell me how this report comes to the conclusion that there's constitutional guarantees of equality, but there's the lived reality, especially around areas of housing policies and how those disadvantage women.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you so much for having me on. Well, just to start by saying that we understand that we have wonderful laws and policies in South Africa. We have some of the most internationally renowned provisions in our constitution. Our policies do talk about equality in a very meaningful way. But what we realized when we did this research and we spoke to women, especially women living in informal settlements in different parts of the country, is that the experience of being a woman does impact your daily life, your access to housing, your tenure security, and many other things that we go into the report. And that difference really makes it an unequal experience for many women across the country.
How does that manifest itself in terms of the lived realities on a day-to-day basis? For instance, what practices are women more prone to than men?
So the report breaks this down into 4 different categories. We look at basic services. So with basic services, for women in informal settlements, we know that even something as simple as using the toilet, which are often placed on the outskirts of the settlement, poses a real risk to their personal safety. And for that reason, many women even in settlements where they do have access to toilets, would think twice before using them, just because the walk to that facility would put them in danger of being assaulted or raped or anything like that. There are many other findings. I'll give you one more. With tenure security, we found that with women who are living in informal settlements, not only is the threat of eviction coming from outside the household, so, by someone trying to demolish the settlement or remove shacks or dwellings, but it's also from within the household. So the breakdown of any kind of relationship makes women extremely vulnerable to being evicted from their home, whether or not they have children. There are more findings in that sort of realm, but I think the point is that the experience of women is even more vulnerable. It's even in some of the most vulnerable living circumstances across the country.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Nerishka Singh, who is Women's Equality Spaces Project Coordinator at the Socio-Economics Rights Institute, that is SERI.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So our under-20s are called Amachita, right, Zai? So Amachita, it talks to youth agility and things like those. When we were young, we used to hunt birds with slingshots. Can they slingshot and hit an eagle flying high?
Yeah, flying high. Yeah, they can.
Is that a possibility?
Of course, these are the baby eagles. They're no match to us Amajitas. Let's go, Amajitas. Tonight, 5 p.m. kickoff. This is when they'll face Nigeria's Flying Eagles in a mouth-watering AFCON Under-20 semi-final. Having already qualified for the Under-20 FIFA World Cup, the pressure is off for South Africa's Amajitas. Nigeria may have 7 titles and a fierce reputation, but coach Raymond Ndaka's charges are undaunted. Look out for Mamelodi Sundowns. They are celebrating their 8th consecutive Betway Premiership title. After a 3-0 win over Chippa United last night, Ikram Reyners set the tone with his 14th goal of the season, while Arthur Sales came off the bench to grab a brace. Ronwen Williams keeping things tight at the back as Chippa barely threatened. With the title now wrapped up, Masandawana turned their focus to the CAF Champions League and the upcoming FIFA Club World Cup. Rugby, the Stormers speedster Suleiman Hartzenberg says it's a privilege to represent the Cape Town side as he prepares to earn his 50th cap. That's tomorrow. The Stormers will host Cardiff in a crucial United Rugby Championship clash ahead of the playoffs. This is what he had to say.
It's just it's a privilege, obviously, to get the 50 caps, and I'm turning 22 4 days after actually my so I'm still 21 at the moment. But for me, it's just a massive milestone, not just for me, obviously for my family as well, and it shows as well the trust the coaches had in me from the beginning, and obviously for me, it's just to take it with pride and kind of carry out and treat it as a normal game and kind of obviously just make everyone proud.
And we have some sad news as the South African rugby is in mourning following the passing of former Springbok wing Cornel Hendricks at the age of 37. Hendricks, who defied a rare heart condition to reignite his career with the Bulls, died of a suspected heart attack yesterday. He played 12 tests for the Springboks, famously scoring against the All Blacks in 2014 after doctors advised him to quit in 2015. Hendricks fought for a return and went on to win the Currie Cup and the Super Rugby Unlocked. His journey inspired many, a player who truly tackled adversity head on. May he rest in peace. That's a wrap of the morning brief. We'll have more sport with John Hedeker around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Democratic Alliance has written to Parliament's Higher Education and Training Portfolio Committee to object to the new appointments of the Sector Education and Training Authorities Board members. Debt-Busters Debt Index for the first quarter of this year shows more South Africans are relying on personal loans to survive as the cost of living escalates. And the Basic Education Department says it's determined to use a multifaceted approach to clean the system of sexual predators. This after the Education Labour Relations Council found at least 39 teachers countrywide guilty of sexual misconduct perpetrated against learners. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Been a busy Thursday, noticeably around Pretoria as well. Still trying to avoid the R21. You're going to be stuck in a massive queue of traffic from Monument Park, moving up towards Fountain Circle this morning. Just stay off that R21 into Pretoria. N1 between John Foster and the R21 going north remains slow after some roadworks there this morning. The N1 South, repetition of yesterday with a crash down between Allendale and Buccleuch. Traffic this hour all the way back to Old Joburg Road. That's really intense. And traffic light problems on Winnie Mandela and Sloane. Backlogging traffic coming out of Four Ways and having a really big impact on the N1. The N1 south from Rivonia, northbound from Bayers Nordia. The highway so badly backed up because you really struggle to get off, and it's a really avoidable delay that if only those traffic lights were fixed properly and permanently. Coming away from the airport, the R24 towards Barber Road is heavy. That's a crash scene as well. Durban side, the N2 going north is heavy. Queen Nundy drive up through a crash at Kormashu and a breakdown towards Gateway. If you're on your way to the airport, give yourself extra time. N2 south in Nunda Road through Spaghetti Junction out to Pavilion. That's a car park again. And the M13 Westfield Sherwood badly backed up. A lot of traffic avoiding the N3 rumble strips and causing that secondary delay on that route. Cape Town Stableview buckling again because of the closure of Malabongwe Drive at noon. Lots of traffic in that area. Of particular concern, motorists should note Plattercliff Road coming across the N7 to Kuberg Road up to Bloberg Road. That stays busy all day long while Malabongwe remains closed. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again, Ntauling. We pick up with news that is music to our ears, right? Tell me about Bank of America revising its SA monetary policy outlook. It's revising it in the right direction.
That's right, Thulas. And you know, if it is, or rather, if it works out and the SARB actually does do this, it will work out in the benefit of many South Africans. The Bank of America revising their monetary outlook for SA and now expecting 2 more interest rate cuts this year. And this is from a forecast of only 1 rate cut. The bank expects the SARB to reduce the repo rate by 25 basis points at this month's meeting and at the July meeting. And those 25 basis point cuts, if they do happen, will bring the policy rate to 7% by the end of July. Now, the bank's sub-Saharan Africa economist, Tatonga Rusike, notes that inflation is benign and likely to remain so, supporting the case for rate cuts, but the pace of easing may be tempered by political and fiscal developments such as the budget that's upcoming and potential risks to the GNU. Rusike, in the meantime, maintains a 1.2% GDP growth forecast for the year, in line with the IMF's projection. The bank expects a small downward revision to the government's growth forecast and notes that high-frequency economic indicators remain subdued, with manufacturing output and mining production also showing weakness. A favorable external environment, though, including low oil prices and a strengthening rand, could support the Reserve Bank's decision to lower rates without jeopardizing price stability. The Bank of America is also positive when it comes to global risks, expecting tariffs imposed by the U.S. to be scaled back after that 90-day pause.
Someone give Lesetja Kganyago's number to Tatonga Rusike and the good people at Bank of America. My goodness, because you and I know that we need this cash back in the pocket. What with this report that's talking about more South Africans turning to loans to cover monthly expenses.
That's right, Thulas. And while we've seen, those rates come down, we've seen consumer confidence tick higher and those two-pot withdrawals adding a little extra to consumers' pockets, many South Africans are still relying on personal loans to make ends meet due to rising living costs. And according to Debt Busters Debt Index report for the first quarter, 91% of consumers who applied for debt counseling had personal loans, while 37% had 1 month or payday loans. The main drivers of this trend are soaring expenses. Now, it's important to note that the index that Debt Busters compiles uses 2016 as a baseline year. And when comparing expenses, electricity tariffs have more than doubled over the past 9 years, and petrol prices have risen by 88% during the same period. Now, the cumulative effect of inflation at 52% over 9 years has also impacted consumers' purchasing power. As a result, consumers seeking debt counseling on average used 69% of their take-home pay to service debt. The most vulnerable consumers earning 5,000 or less use 76% of their income for debt repayment, while those earning 35,000 Rand or more spend 77%.
All right, on that note, in Ndauling, what kind of a trading day can we expect today?
So local markets are likely in for another mixed day, just following global peers. When looking at local news in terms of company news, earnings out from property group Equitas and Afrimat, and we'll also get numbers from car track owner Karoo. So lots to digest today on the local front. On the currency scene, the Rand making slight gains this hour. It really is holding up well at 18.23 to the dollar. Then over in the U.S., traders digesting comments from Fed officials. Policymakers are confident in the U.S. economy, saying it remains solid, which buys the policymakers time to assess the impact of Trump's trade policies before making any monetary policy moves. Futures, in the meantime, are in the red. Then lastly, over in Asia, markets taking a breather in negative territory today as investors await new market-moving catalysts.
That's how Ndauling Lechela there. She's always right on the money. She's kept you updated on all things to do with business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours. Thank you, Ndauling.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
22 minutes to 9. Let's turn to consumer news now that affect motorists, and perhaps at a certain level it is concerning. The National Consumer Commission has issued an urgent alert to South African motorists following a series of vehicle recalls affecting multiple major car brands, including Jeep, Citroën, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Volkswagen, and Volvo. The recalls, prompted by potentially life-threatening airbag, battery and brake defects, impact vehicles sold as far back as 2009 up to models manufactured in 2023. So let's speak to Prudence Muyilwa, who is head of complaints and investigations at the National Consumer Commission. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What's behind this recall and how extensive is it? It looks to me the number of brands that are covered would make it one of the more comprehensive recalls that we've had in recent years.
Good morning to your listeners. Yes, I need to just maybe clarify something. The notification comes from different brands.
Yes.
And as you may know, all manufacturers of products in the country have an obligation to recall products when they show signs of defects, especially if there are safety concerns. So this would ordinarily happen on an ongoing basis. We receive notifications of defective products of various types. So right now, I think what is maybe of interest is that we've received them from quite a number or range of models and suppliers.
Yeah, and so that clarification is that it's not you issuing the recall, but you are communicating it because you operate in that space. What's your understanding of, is there anything in common that these recalls from the various manufacturers and dealers that they have?
Yeah. Well, we've noted various, defects as per the notification. I must also say that in terms of the law, in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, they are duty-bound to inform us, and we are duty-bound to monitor the recalls and make sure that they are successful. So with regard to the Stellantis South Africa ones, which is the one that are recalling the Jeep Wrangler, Chrysler, Citroën, we've picked up that the issue there is in the main the airbag. Whenever there is a deployment of an airbag, there is a risk that the metal fragments could strike the passengers. So that is really a safety feature or safety risk. And we've also picked up that with the Audi e-tron and the Volvo XC, the challenge there is the battery. Even though they are two separate companies, we've picked up that the high voltage batteries are a risk, wherein they're saying that there's a risk of an acute fire hazard on the batteries because they would overheat. So those are some of the similarities that we have picked up. The Mercedes-Benz one, the problem is the brake hose, because then it will lead to the brake fluid leaking or leakage because the hose itself is a problem. With VW sedans, there's a recall of about 905 vehicles. The issue there is just the rear seat belt. The latch there, they are saying that it has insufficient hardness, which means that in an impact, we did not necessarily be able to hold the seat belt. So that is the difference between those ones, but also similarities amongst the other ones. So we want consumers who drive this vehicle to please contact the accredited dealerships to take them in the way that they would do when they are taking in their vehicles for a service, for the suppliers to be able to fix these problems in terms of their recall strategy, which is mainly to keep the consumers safe on the road.
Do you have any remedial authority in this situation? Because some of the defects you just described sound really dangerous. I mean, this one with the Jeep Wrangler and Chrysler 300C manufactured between 2014 and 2016, believed to be affected by the Takata airbag inflators. That situation where there could be a rupture of the airbag during deployment, releasing metal fragments. That's scary. So I'm just wondering, as a South African consumer, whether you have any authority to intervene and ensure that these don't recur and that the standards are maintained.
Of course we do. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, not only are we then have the responsibility to ensure that the recalls are successful, but also to make sure that consumers have the necessary recourse. That I think the provisions of the Consumer Protection Act fully cover the rights of consumers in instances of death or injury or even any other way in terms of the recourse that is appropriate as and when there is a product failure or there is a safety issue. So South African consumers must rest assured the Consumer Protection Act fully supports their rights to safety and quality of the products that they buy. Right now we're talking obviously just about the recall, but obviously when incidents do happen, there are provisions in the Act that provide for remedial action.
Am I correct in being concerned about the time that it takes to pick up these defects? Some of these vehicles, the Citroën C4, DS4, DS5, the models go as far back as 2009. That's a good decade and a half later, and so on and so on. The other examples are also there. Is it concerning that it takes so long to pick up the defects?
Of course, we are also concerned as the Commission, and the Commissioner has instructed us to obviously have meetings with the OEMs. One of the things that we need to also emphasize is that during the recalls, as and when we pick up that there was negligence on the side of suppliers in not necessarily following processes of manufacturing or the best practices of manufacturing, we have a right to hold them accountable. Safe to say, in the last year, obviously the suppliers and manufacturers that we have held accountable for the product recall, even though it's not related to motor vehicles, we have been able to hold them fully accountable and for consumers to get the appropriate redress. So we will be engaging with them. We also want to understand the same thing. But we also understand that with certain products, certain defects or safety concerns arise over time with the wear and tear of the vehicle. But still, suppliers have a responsibility to make sure that consumers are safe.
All right. Thank you for sharing that information with us in line with your mandate as the National Consumer Commission. That's Prudence Muyilwa, who is the head of complaints and investigations at the National Consumer Commission. So do look out if you drive any of the vehicles that are affected that we mentioned earlier on. Just do a search and find out, or call your dealership where you do your service to find out if your vehicle is among those that are meant to be taken back as part of this recall.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes now. Let's take this one. There's two, actually, that have to do with President Cyril Ramaphosa and his imminent visit to the United States to meet with Donald Trump.
Thulasizwe, good morning. If at all Cyril Ramaphosa is to be successful in the States, he needs to take with him a few of those Solidarity guys, AfriForum guys, who are opposed to what the 49ers are saying. They need to go there, sit down with Donald Trump, and perhaps he will see the bigger picture. Because if Ramaphosa had to go by himself, he's just going to be, Donald Trump is going to run circles around him. And that's the Donald Trump we know. Thank you so much.
I wonder how that would play out, right? Given that there's already differences of opinion between the organizations that you mentioned and our government, even here domestically. Imagine if he says something that AfriForum, the representative from AfriForum or Solidarity doesn't agree with, and then they start disagreeing right there in the presence of Donald Trump. Although it must be said, there has been a bit of progress. I saw that there were certain political engagements between these organizations and some of the country's top political organizations. But interesting idea to take them along to explain that, what you're hearing is actually not the case, particularly as far as a genocide in South Africa is concerned, because that's been something that these organizations have been clear about, that there isn't a genocide happening in the country. Let me take this one as well.
Good morning, great show as always. Manoli is here. Sending Ramaphosa is a waste of time, guys. We've got confidence in Ramaphosa, and look at the country. That guy is just a waste. Actually, must just stay home, focus on the miners, 240 miners that are losing their job. Maybe he can go and negotiate with the mine. That's the step. At least he can try that. But trusting him with anything these days is a waste of time.
All right, interesting take there. Let me just read a WhatsApp message that has come through from Mr. S in Bloemfontein. It's got all these emojis, right? And you and I know about emojis now. Mr. S says, I'm really laughing when I think of that meeting. Cupcake is too reserved for that meeting. Lamula should accompany him, otherwise will be toast after that meeting. That's from accompanied by all the requisite emojis of laughing face with the tears streaming down the cheeks there, just to emphasize the point. And then someone here says, can the Trump-Ramaphosa discussion not be broadcast as was done with the Trump-Zelensky discussion? And I suspect that we will see a lot of it playing itself out in the full glare of the media and cameras in true Donald Trump style. I do expect that will be part of the features of this meeting.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it is super busy this morning coming out of Pretoria on the way down to Joburg. It is day 2 of major backlogs. This morning, again, due to a crash on the highway between Allendale and Buccleuch interchange. Traffic is all the way back through to Old Joburg Road. If you need any more confirmation or persuading to stay off the N1, I have put a video up on x.com and Twitter. It's at TrafficSA, the handle. It's worth having a look at it before you leave Pretoria and work out, you'd rather be on an alternative route that'll be more open and more flowing than the N1. It really is bad this morning. All lanes jammed. Old Joburg right down effectively to Buccleuch. Stay off that one. The main road coming in from Lone Hill, or from Kyalami down through Lone Hill towards Vidkop, and that's heavy this morning. The N1 between Beyers Naudé and the off-ramp to Winnie Mandela, again badly held up because of the traffic light issues there. The R21 away from the airport, queuing at Bupsfontein into roadworks. R21 should be avoided between Monument Park and Fountain Circle. Going into Pretoria, there's still a big heavy backlog there. Durban Durban. Earlier crash on the N2 North at Komashi is being cleared. There's still a breakdown ahead of that by Schlangen, so N2 North remains under pressure. Van Reenen's Pass, truck crash recovery has been cleared. That backlog busy working through. In Cape Town, the standout really on a pretty busy Thursday is what's going on at Tableview. There's a lot of congestion still with the closure of Malabongwe at Dunoon. The key routes to note is Plattekloof Road coming from de Crandall Circle to Kuiberg Road, then Kuiberg Road passing Refinery up to Bloberg. That is heavy, and it stays heavy all day as long as that Malabongwe route remains closed. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Mam Magdalene in Bloemfontein, let me start straight with you. Please go straight to your point. You want to talk about Donald Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yes, Thulasizwe and the listeners, it has been a long overdue ever since Donald Trump took the office as a president. A lot happened between South Africa and America. And we are talking international relations here, which is capacitated with international trading, which has affected South Africa. So it is high time that Donald Trump and Ramaphosa meet to air out everything. I know the plate is big now. It's full of the Israel thing, the G20 thing, the BRICS thing. So this one of the Afrikaners, it was just a streamline for them to meet. That's all. So let them go and let Ramaphosa man enough to prove himself as a president of South Africa.
Gotcha.
That's all that we need.
Thank you for that, saying that it's a meeting that's long overdue. The in-tray is full already and just a lot for these leaders to deal with. Sivuile and KZN, good morning. You want to talk to me about Donald Trump. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Thulas and the listeners. My name is Sivuile, all the way from Uvongo, Port Shepstone. Brother Thulas, what I will advise a delegation to include a member of DA, a member of Freedom Front, so that they can give a clear picture of what is happening in South Africa. Much as I wish they include Mr. Thabo Mbeki, who is well vested with international affairs. Again, second and lastly, Brother Thulas, they need to question the decision making by Mr. Donald Trump, because the letter of the law talks about.
Oh no, not again. Oh, Sivuile? No, we've lost Sivuile. The line has dropped there to Sivuile. Right as he was getting his cadence there in making his point, we do seem to have lost Sivuile. Let me take one or two voice notes and see if we can return to your calls. Let me take this one also on the issue of President Ramaphosa and his imminent visit to the United States.
Morning, Thulas. As for our president, he's just going there to America just to tick the boxes. I don't think he can be able to stand and push back to Trump. He's just going to listen. Our president is too soft. You can even see in our country when there are incidents He's nowhere to be found. He's saying nothing as a president. So do you think he can stand against Trump? I don't think so.
Yeah. The good thing is perhaps this conversation will filter through to the president, your expectations as South Africans. Let me move on to this next one. It has a very interesting suggestion as to who should form part of the delegation that goes with President Ramaphosa to the White House.
Hi, Thulasizwe. I would suggest our president goes there with Malema. He must go with Malema and not with Denzel Mackenzie, the minister of sport and culture, because he will go and lie down and back Trump. He must go with Malema. He's a member of parliament. You must take him there so that when Trump says he's rubbish, you can respond. Thank you.
Now, that's an interesting one. Imagine how that would play out. I don't see it happening simply because if you followed the rhetoric coming out of Washington, Julius Malema is one of those politicians who is very much firmly in their crosshairs in terms of just, how they view him as being a problematic politician in South Africa. So I don't know if it would happen, really, if you followed the posts that they've made about him on social media, the interactions between him and Elon Musk in recent months. But who knows, hey? But the sense I'm getting is that there needs to be some fire in that room, right? Someone needs to bring the fire to President Ramaphosa's diplomacy. This one has to do with the Omotosho case and the intended appeal by the National Prosecuting Authority.
Good morning to us. In terms of the re-traumatizing, I would like to disagree with the Rev there. I think it's more traumatizing for them to have the perpetrator running around and saying he's a man of God, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, they know what he did to them. So I am for the appeal, and I'm hoping that the NPA wins and that guy is locked up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that interesting take there about, and also one of the things that has happened, and we've learned this from the Pistorius matter, and also I think the recent one, Koko, is it, from also in Makhanda in the High Court there, it was also a rape matter, is that once it's at the Supreme Court of Appeal, it doesn't necessarily need to be sent back for a trial to be started de novo, to be started from scratch. Sometimes, and a lot of the times, the SCA will then go into the legal path that the Judge Akwo in the trial court should have followed, and then is at large to actually replace that with its own decision, and sometimes then sending it back to say, for sentencing procedures, let's take it back to that. So there's also that little nuance that might play itself out. Let me hear what this person has to say about the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Patoi.
Thulas, good morning to you and your wonderful listeners of SAFM. Thulas, Shamila Patoi, the National Director of Public Prosecution, has been punching above her weight ever since she was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So the fish rot from the head. She must just resign. She failed this nation, and she's nowhere to be found to make comments about the mess that is happening at NPA. It's Thabo Manyige here.
Yeah, Thabo, thank you for that. A lot of people reflecting on the tenure of the NDPP. It would be actually, as you suggested, it would be beneficial for her to reflect with us on that. Let's see what channels we can follow. We do have, quite good channels with the National Prosecuting Authority. Let's see if we can facilitate it as a major conversation in the days to come. I don't believe I have enough time to play this one, so I think at this point, let's call it a day. Yeah, that's it really. That's our full and final account to you in lieu of your morning brief for today. Thank you for listening. More quality news and current affairs programming coming up just after the news, and we'll start with the talking point just after the news.
In our top stories, DA demands answers over SETA board appointments and many South Africans relying on personal loans to survive. Good morning. The Democratic Alliance has written to Parliament's Higher Education and Training Portfolio Committee to object to the new appointments of the Sector Education and Training Authorities board members. The party has cited the inclusion of prominent ANC-linked individuals such as Minister Gwede Mantashe's son Buyambo and former KwaZulu-Natal Premier Nomusa Dube-Ncube. They are concerns the seaters which facilitate skills development through programs like learnerships and internships would potentially be politicized. DA National spokesperson Karabo Khachau says the entity won't be as effective as it should.
They are pretty much eating away at the board's ability to do its work effectively because, people don't have to work. All they have to do is just be there because they know that they're either Gwede Mantashe's son, they're either Gwede Mantashe's advisor, they're either a former premier of the KZN. We are looking very earnestly to closely be able to deal with the minister and let her answer for why is it that she thinks that KZN ANC cadres should be at the helm of seaters, particularly when we know seaters are a playground of rot and corruption across the sector.
Debtbusters debt index for the first quarter of this year shows more South Africans are relying on personal loans to survive as the cost of living escalates. According to the index, a third of South Africans are struggling to repay their debt. 91% of debt counselling applicants have loans. Debtbusters Chief Operations Officer Benay Sager says the number is worrying.
The real challenge is that because incomes haven't grown, consumers are feeling the need to supplement them with